Did she say what kind of animal it was that attacked her?
So yeah, they're saying it's some type of animal attack. Statistically, there's been more animal attacks, mysterious deaths, people gone missing.
In other news, local authorities remain perplexed by the animal attacks.
What attacked you in the woods?
An animal. What else could it have been?
Welcome to It Was an Animal Attack, home of the supernatural drama series. I'm Sandile.
And I'm Fadzai.
Ladies, gentlemen, everyone between and outside, we have arrived at our final session of the Elena Gilbert episode.
Yay.
Mama told me there'd be days like these. We finally made it.
We're going into season 5.
Before we get into it, before we bring the mood real low, let me start on a high note. Fadzai, as of today, when we're recording this, it is exactly 1 year since we dropped our first episode of the podcast.
Oh, wow. The symmetry. We're on our main character.
Exactly. We're closing out for our main character of the show. I noticed, I think when we were doing the second part, I was checking the schedule to be like, oh, we're going to finish this the year after we started. And I thought that was beautiful. It's been a year of making this podcast. Thank you to everyone who has listened and is still listening. Thank you to you, Fadzai, for making this insane show with me. It's been a hell of a ride.
Thank you as well. Thank you for being able to tolerate all the Delena discussions.
I'll tell you something, I will not today.
To any listeners who are Delena stans, firstly, why? But also, thank you for tolerating our not unbiased opinions. Not incorrect either.
No, absolutely not. We are right and we always will be, but there is bias. What can you do? Speaking of, as you said, today we'll be discussing all of season 5 and 6 for Elena Gilbert. Listener, you may think that's a lot to cover in a brief amount of time. I'll have you know, we may have time left over today when we're done. Because let me tell you, Homegirl is not in these seasons. You may think she is because you see her face every now and then pop up on the screen when you watch them. Elena is not in these seasons.
Sometimes it's not even her face.
It's her face, but it's not her.
Or sometimes it's her face, but somebody else's. You know what? Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
It's not. But just, we'll say out front, the energy is going to be insane today because preparing for this has fully fried my brain. Our main character disappears from the A-plot almost consistently over these next 2 seasons. What is she doing, you may ask? It's all Delena, right? Is what it ultimately is. Season 5 and season 6, almost entirely Elena's storyline is her relationship with Damon, which I'm at a space where I've processed that and moved on from that, but like, as someone who has sung the praises of this character and how iconic she can be as the main character, as a human and then as a vampire, it's insane that going forward into what's meant to be her good era as a vampire, she is completely, as they love to say, consumed by Damon and her relationship with Damon. So that's where we are. Starting right at the beginning of season 5, Catherine's been cured. None of our main trio took the cure. Elena and Damon riding off into the sunset together, and Stefan supposedly leaving town to, I don't know, give them space to be together. Elena and Damon are having their summer of love, which I thought was like a holiday or like a trip. They just have a 3-month sex fest at the Salvatore mansion. That's about all they do.
As I've said, nobody ever leaves this damn town.
It feels crazy to have a summer of love in the town. But I digress. Stefan is missing, Bonnie is dead, and no one knows either of those things or cares about them. So
I mean, Jeremy knows that Bonnie is dead.
Jeremy as a medium is the secret keeper for at least one of these things. But Stefan, no one has talked to him, and Elena is emailing Bonnie, which I had to sit with for like 5 minutes and try and understand. What does that mean? What year are we in? Remind me, in season 5? This is 2013?
Season 5 is freshman year of college, so it's 2 years after season 1. So we are in 2011 still, which is
but they
insane.
had phones in the first season, right? They were texting and calling each other. But for 3 months, she has been emailing Bonnie. And she's like, everything's fine. Everything's good.
I know this might be hard to believe. Gentle listeners, I try not to always dig into a place of Twilight, but sometimes the parallels are just too on the nose. This is giving Bella emailing Alice even though the emails weren't sending, and it's like, why would Elena, who has had Bonnie's phone number probably since these people got phones in their early teens, why is she emailing Bonnie Gmail? When she isn't getting any replies? Oh no, she is. I think Jeremy's faking the replies.
Jeremy's faking replies. That's well and good. You never once called her?
Highly convenient.
And if you called her and she didn't answer, you were just like, this is fine.
Very convenient for the sake of the lie that she just decided, I'm going to email Bonnie like I'm a teenager from 1999.
Listen, it works within the narrative of Elena has just fully forgotten any of her other loved ones because she's so wrapped up in Damon, right? But it's like, wow. It's crazy that's like, this is what happened. She forgot all her friends. Her ex-boyfriend / kind of friend, it's up in the air, is like drowning in a quarry in the same town. Again, they didn't leave the town. They're in Mystic Falls. As Stefan drowns not 2 miles away.
I mean, millennials, particularly younger millennials, which is, I guess, sort of what these people are. Are they 90s babies? Yeah. They were 17 in 2009.
I guess they're born in 94.
No, 92.
Is that right?
92.
92.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I guess.
Wait, but then why was Liz Forbes pregnant in 94? On the day of the worst thing Damon ever did? Is Caroline like really young? No, we know she's 17.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
2009.
That seems to be a mathematical error.
It's because they just had to throw in that, like, ooh, he was friends with Liz before, right? Because everything about Damon is a red card.
Maybe that part of the flashback happens, like, he kills Zach's wife in 94.
He's there for 2 years?
Maybe.
He's there for 2 years feeding on people in Mystic Falls before Stefan even notices? That's crazy. I know it seems like I'm fighting you on this. I'm fighting the show that doesn't know what it's doing.
I was going to say, as younger, I mean, they're kind of like mid-tier millennials, but as younger millennials, maybe they just don't like to make phone calls.
To be on phone calls. Mm.
Yeah, so she's just... But then I'm still like, why are you emailing her and not texting her? Because I could have believed that Jeremy just had her phone and was just responding to text.
He does have a phone and he's faking text, but the email seems to be the thing they focused on for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe there's something about American culture that we're missing, and that's fine.
Perhaps.
Elena's in the bath at some point when she goes under the water and it transitions to Stefan drowning in the quarry. So, really gives you a sense of what's happening here. She leaves in Damon's care a newly resurrected Jeremy, who they've gotten back into school by saying he was on drugs, accidentally burned down his own house.
No, deliberately. I think the story is that he was such a problem child that he faked his own death and burned down the family home in the process.
I remember Elena saying, stress that it's an accident. We don't want them to think you're a firebug.
Oh, okay.
We don't want you to think that, like, arson is just something you do.
But he is supposed to have faked his own death.
Yes.
Oh,
which
gosh.
is insane. This poor kid. I don't know how they thought he was going to be well-adjusted.
I'm like, you guys don't mind compelling people. Couldn't you just like go around town compelling everyone to forget that Jeremy died?
Why all of a sudden do we care? It's like, compel as many people as you can find who know he's dead, and then the rest are just crazy. Just gaslight them.
The further you get away from the like core group and the people who like know the family well, you just lie and say, no, that was a rumor. I don't think, no, Jeremy didn't die. I think you misunderstood.
Yeah, you weren't at the funeral. How would you know? There wasn't a funeral. The house burned down. Another thing that's happening is Elena and Caroline are now going to Whitmore College as new freshmen at the college. At their new dorm, Sheriff Forbes, who's helping them move in, tells Elena that this is where her father fell in love with medicine. So this is laying the groundwork for a shift that's going to happen for Elena, and also just like the shift in which parent is important as a reference point, because I think we discussed this in a prior session. For a lot of the time, it's Miranda, but this is a season where Grayson's gonna pop up a bit more. So, a win for men, I guess.
So I gotta say, this college of convenience that's like nicely located next to their small one-horse town. It's like an hour's drive away. It's giving Buffy.
It's giving Sunnydale U that was just around and nobody spoke about.
It was actually UC Sunnydale, and I was like, oh, there's a University of California campus here in Sunnydale. And I was like, how big or small is Sunnydale supposed to be? Because it has one school and like one club and one bar, but it has a university campus, several graveyards. It's got a museum.
It's got an expansive number of graveyards. That's actually so true. They seem to be surrounded on that campus exclusively by woods and graveyards, which is like, real estate-wise, whose decision was this?
I'm just like, a town that has space for a university campus, how is there only one school? That doesn't make any sense.
You can't be feeding one high school class into this university and be profitable. It's kind of crazy.
But it's like, it's very much that thing of, because the plot is tied to this town in Buffy, it's the Hellmouth. She needs to be around the Hellmouth. So now the university that they go to is conveniently a hop, skip, and a jump away. Mystic Falls, I mean, there's nothing binding them to the town. They really could have moved away, but...
The natural hell that Mystic Falls is binding them. The inescapable hell of Mystic Falls, unfortunately.
I'm just like, hardworking Caroline Forbes, so neurotic, like her lovely GPA.
Could be in any Ivy League school.
She decided to go to this random little university
in
Virginia.
I guess it's like, you know what? My mom is going to be by herself and now we've repaired our relationship. I guess it kind of makes sense. Elena has to worry about her brother who's still in high school. It makes sense, but also it's like, it is the college years which almost never go well and you have to do a lot of suspension of disbelief, right? With these kinds of shows.
I guess in Caroline's case, she so badly wants to go to university with Tyler that we need to take into account what universities could Tyler get into, even with the wealth that he has behind him. He skipped so much school when he was on the run from Klaus and learning to be a werewolf the year before that maybe he just couldn't get in anywhere else.
It's like, this is our one option and I'm putting all my stock in this high school relationship, which, listen, they're very madly in love, but I am an adult, so... They move in, their roommates in their enormous palatial dorm. They're like packing their stuff away. They've got the little dorm fridge and they're about to drink from their blood bags to celebrate getting in when Hayley Kiyoko walks into the scene.
I was so hoping you'd use her real name.
I barely remember. I think her name's Megan. It starts with an M, but that's Hayley Kiyoko. And I don't think I'm going to call her anything else. Fully walks into the scene from Lemonade Mouth and goes, "Hey guys, I'm your new roommate." And so it's this whole thing of like, oh no, why do we have a third roommate? Which I'm confused by, because it's like, I have to imagine that the dorms have a set number of people. So they had to know they were getting a third person. They can't have been waiting for Barney because they don't know where Barney is and they don't care. So I'm like, what
I think
exactly is happening?
I think they were waiting for Barney. I think Barney was making excuses and they had probably like tried to compel their way to getting a room that they were just saving for her.
And then she got in somehow.
And
they're like, what the hell? Who is she?
The power of Lemonade Mouth. Determinate. She
determinated her way in. So she comes in and they're like, oh, who's this random girl? We don't like her even though we know nothing about her and it's weird. They also have this ambient stress of like, we are trying to escape the drama of Mystic Falls and start a normal college life. And now there's this girl who's come in. Caroline takes one of her waters and when she drinks it, she starts burning because it's got vervain in it. And they're like, oh no, do we have a vampire hunter in our midst? This is insane.
Which also, Caroline, why are you taking someone else's water? Like,
after she had just said, I have a specific diet, don't touch my stuff. And Hayley Kiyoko was like, we'll just separate shelves. And then they were like, oh, good. And then she goes and takes Hayley Kiyoko's water. I hate that, actually. You're wrong for that, Caroline. That's why I live alone now. No, I'm joking. My last roommate, of the issues I had living with a roommate, that was not one of them. So they later go to a party with this college sophomore or junior. He's a little bit older. Jesse, played by Kendrick Sampson, one of those like impossibly attractive mixed black guys. Just like, he's one of the ones, you know, the like 5 in Hollywood. He invites them to a party, but Elena and Caroline can't get into the house because they're not invited in. So they're just like milling around the outside. Just then, Hayley Kiyoko calls them in a panic and is like, someone's chasing me through this house, Whitmore House. And they're trying to get more information because they can't get in. She's screaming on the other end and suddenly, whoop, a body falls out the window, hits the ground, dead. Neck bleeding, vampire style. And they're like, oh god, the drama has followed us here to witness.
They're like, we're so back.
We're so back. We thought it was so over, but we're so back. When they speak to the head of security, Diane something, I forget, she tells them it was a suicide. And then they're like, oh, well, we were on the phone as she was dying, so somebody's covering this up. They check through Hayley Kiyoko's phone, which Caroline stole, obviously, after she fell out the window. And Elena sees a picture of Megan. I have remembered and written down her name. Megan with Elena's dad. And it's like, why would this random girl who became our roommate unexpectedly have a picture of my dead father? Like, what's happening? And that's about as much as happens for the first episode. Elena in the next episode finds the report showing Megan's cause of death was signed by a Dr. Wes Maxfield.
Here we go.
I wish I could tell you we'd discuss him in detail, but we don't. There's not much to talk about. So she switches around hers and Caroline's schedule so that they can attend his upper year microbiology class. Again, they're not clear about what year exactly he teaches, but Jesse's in that class and he's like, aren't you a freshman? What's going on? So they see Dr. Maxfield, played by my darling Rick Cosnett, whose motivation could only have been, what if a gay man was evil and boring? What would that look like? It is insane that he's just so very clearly queer, and like they're trying to, you know, whenever they bring in a new male like antagonist, or it's like unclear if they're going to be an antagonist or a new protagonist, and they try to sell you on how hot they are, which is like, Rick Cosnett is an attractive man, but it's like the vibe that he's putting off would not entice these girlies. They would entice girlies their age today, I think, but not in 2011. So they get caught out by him because they won't stop yapping in class, and he's like, go back to your 101, please. Get out and stop disrupting my class. Elena tells Damon about the ordeal on the phone later, and as she's speaking to him, she's outside at her campus, she suddenly sees Stefan. Which, from stuff that happened in the first episode, we know this is not Stefan. This is Silas. His true appearance as the original of the Salvatore doppelganger line. He speaks to her as Stefan, though, and is like, oh, I figured Damon would have filled you in about how I was back. Maybe he's too busy with the Jeremy situation. And then I was like, what Jeremy situation? And Silas is like, it's not a big deal. Jeremy got expelled, and now he's disappeared. Nobody knows where he is. And it's like, he's sowing drama because Damon is supposed to be taking care of Jeremy and has not told Elena any of this.
I mean, a wild choice on her part, frankly.
Makes no sense.
If Elena wanted to leave Jeremy with someone, I'm like, why not Sheriff Forbes? She's an empty nester right now.
Right. She needs a child to take care of because her daughter's off in college. Like, she's enough of a hands-off parent that it won't, like, spook Jeremy, who doesn't like being helicoptered. It's the perfect match.
She's a family friend. She's known Jeremy for years. She knows all the secrets, like, of supernatural stuff that goes on.
She has a conversation with Sheriff Forbes later, I think in season 6, about how after her parents died and Jenna was struggling in the early months to take care of 2 teens, that Sheriff Forbes stepped in to help them. So it's like, what? This is insane. Again, the Delana of it all, like, expands to fill so much space that it pushes out logic and reason. It's like, who in their right mind is leaving a teenager in the care of Damon Salvatore?
A teenager he's killed once before.
Yeah. Not my family, none of my business. Silas is just here to get Jeremy's location, and he does from Elena because he has psychic powers. He sends Elena off to the bonfire party. She's there hanging out with Jesse, who is Dr. Maxfield's student, so she gets like information on him because he's a little bit weird. And he signed off that fake cause of death notice. Jesse's telling her supposedly he's in some secret society at the college. They meet a few times a week at Whitmore House.
Wilgenhof.
before he can tell her anything more, Damon comes in and knocks him out. Why? I can't fully remember. I guess because he knows Silas is on campus, so Silas might have like mind controlled somebody to hurt Elena, but also it's like Elena's a vampire, so I don't know what Jesse exactly could do to her. I don't know, man. He knocks Jesse out. Caroline's like, what the hell? When they get back to Elena's dorm, I'm sorry. Elena throws Damon into a chair and starts making out with him, then takes a bottle of Megan's water from the fridge, again, the water that contains vervain, and forces it down his throat. You see it gushing down his throat over his mouth, burning him. And I went, are we back? Did you suddenly wake up? What happened? Did you realize? No, she's been psychically compelled by Silas. She uses his own clothes to tie him to the chair, which is like, okay, I guess we need more shirtless Damon shots. This is kind of ridiculous, guys. This is kind of crazy. She ties him up and she's like, yeah, Silas has psychically told her to get him alone, weaken him, and then kill him. She shoves more vervain water down his throat. He spits some of it onto her, burning her, and it briefly breaks her out of the trance. She then realizes that, oh, that wasn't Stefan I was speaking to today, that was Silas, and you knew that, so something's happened to Stefan, and you have not told me that also. On top of all the Jeremy shit that I just found out earlier today. She then has to like grab a fire poker and stab herself to keep herself from killing Damon. But even that doesn't work. She has to break a gas. She goes to break a gas line because it's like, even if I'm stuck in place and I can't get to him, then I have to do whatever it takes. We're both going out in a blaze of glory together. So she breaks the gas line and goes to light a match. And Damon, unable to get through to her, tells her to think of Stefan and the feeling that Caroline told him she's been feeling all summer, that something's wrong with Stefan. That worry and that desire to see him safe. And that's what breaks Elena out of Silas's psychic hold. Well, listen, there's no point in saying it. There's no point in bringing it up because it means nothing. But it is an interesting mirror of Stefan resisting Klaus's compulsion so that he wouldn't hurt her. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
You know, definitely worth mentioning.
The next morning, she's about to leave for Mystic Falls because clearly Damon could not be trusted to handle anything. Dr. Maxfield comes out, tells her that, oh, I know who you are, Elena Gilbert. I knew your dad. He was one of the greatest doctors I knew at this college, and I aspire to be just like him. You should come to my office so we can chat. And Elena's like, that's great. I'm busy doing something else right now, so I'll see you when I get back. So she and Damon head off to Mystic Falls. They go to meet Sheriff Forbes at the quarry, where her deputies, I guess, have trawled the waters to try and find the safe that Silas was supposed to be in at the bottom of the quarry. They expect to find Stefan inside the safe. They open it and they find some human guy, dead, fully rippered, like throat covered in blood, very clearly drained of blood and dead. So Stefan is free and hungry. The next episode, Elena has a psychic dream about Stefan. Where she sees him he's running down the road, he gets to some bar, I think he eats somebody, and then he runs out onto the street and the sun burns him because he doesn't have his daylight ring. I guess Silas has taken it?
Did Silas take it or did his savior take it?
I'm not sure. I imagine Silas would take it because he was mimicking his appearance, but he could just use his psychic powers to make
I'm like, is it too much effort to make people either not notice the ring or see the ring on your hand when it's not there? Rather not notice the absence of the ring.
Maybe it was a savior, who knows? It's not his episode, so I didn't check. But she has this dream of Stefan and is like, it's not like when she was having the feeling before, this feels really real. And then Catherine walks into her and Damon's room and is like, yeah, I've been having the exact same dream. Oh yeah, Catherine's just here now.
Catherine looking disheveled.
Oh,
her
so
heels
messy.
are broken. She's not doing good. There's leaves in her hair.
Nails are chipped. She's having a rough time. But she's like, yeah, I'm having the exact same dream. This is some doppelganger shit. Like, we gotta get to it. This makes Elena realize that the whole summer, that feeling that she had that Stefan was in trouble was real. And she ignored it. So now they're off on a road trip to go find Stefan. And Catherine tags along, which Elena's not pleased about. They find the bar that Stefan was at. They say it's called Joe's. I don't think it's called Joe's. I think the lady who's managing it has a name tag that says Joe. So I don't know what that is. They don't find Stefan. They speak to Joe briefly, but then Nadia shows up. This season's so weird, man. Like, I truly am like, I think Nadia shows up in that scene and she's looking for Catherine Pierce. Catherine, of course, immediately tries to sell out Elena so she can get away. Elena has to block Nadia to keep her safe because they know Silas wants Catherine. So she's like, Catherine, run! And she blocks off Nadia. I don't know what happens in that fight. It doesn't really matter. It's crazy how often Nadia loses fights in this show to vampires a third her age.
You know,
It's baffling to me.
she should only be like 20 years younger than Catherine. In terms
She
of
should
when
be
she got
as
turned.
powerful as Catherine, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, she loses to Elena, she loses to Damon, she loses to Tyler, who, even though he's like young hybrid, Trump's old vampire, it's like, by that much? You're like 1 year old. This is crazy. I think they just wanted to do the Catherine daughter storyline, but not have like another formidable old vampire. And it's like, okay, great, but it also sucks that she's like a woman and she's the one you're putting through this. Why isn't Julian this week, you know?
I guess at this point, we've had, you know, newbie vamp Elena and Hunter of the Five, Jeremy, kill an original with a bit of vervain and some quick timing. So
it's all to
a
the
500-year-old vampire. It's like, eh.
So yeah, Elena saves Catherine from Nadia. Out in the woods, Catherine's trying to play keep away, and then Elena finds her and is like, listen, we need to go. Catherine asks Elena why she didn't just kill her after giving her the cure. And Elena tells her, you think because we share the same dreams and we both care about Stefan that we're alike, but we're not. I value my humanity, which is why I let you live. And she says, whatever shred of humanity that's buried underneath 500 years of bad behavior, I was hoping you would find it. So Catherine says, thank you. It's nice to know that you care, even if you are a condescending bitch. All right, Catherine.
I will just say, Elena, honey, I don't believe you. I'm so sorry. You knew Catherine having to live as a human being would be the worst thing for her.
Catherine does ask that. I think she said exactly what she said. She's like, oh, I think you thought me being a human would be the greatest suffering I could receive. And Elena was like, that wasn't my plan, but it is a nice added bonus. So, you know, 50-50. Nadia does then show up and snap her neck from behind, so... You know, Damon, I guess, after they split up Nadia to go keep Catherine safe, Damon kept going to go find Stefan, and he's found this cabin that's just like somewhere. I don't know. It feels remote. Damon has already gone there and tried to engage with Kitsia, 2,000-year-old witch, legend, icon, who just knocked him out with ease. So Elena finds this cabin where she's been keeping Stefan. She's calling for Stefan from outside and busts in, and she sees him tied up to a chair and rushes over to him, trying to wake him up. She's all emotionally distressed because he might be dead. Meanwhile, Damon is lying on the ground, having just come to consciousness and watching this happen. And he's been told by Ketsia, oh, the doppelgangers are fated to be together, and he's just an extra, just like some optional spice for the story. And eventually, Elena and Stefan will find their way back to each other. And let me tell you, I don't care. I don't care about any of this.
At the time I was watching this, you know, and I still had hope. I was like, I hope she's right. Even if it's some stupid supernatural destiny thing, I'll take it as long as Elena is endgame. And now all I can think is, you played me, Julie. You played me like a fool.
Fooled you entirely.
You strung me along for another season when you knew that you had designs for Delena for the foreseeable future, and whatever plans she had for Stefan to, you know, circle back around into Elena's heart later on, they didn't happen because, you know,
we had to close out. The funny thing is that I don't know how early it was that it was like, you know, Dobrev was like, I'm leaving the show. But the storyline in this where it's like, ooh, the doppelgangers are having these psychic dreams about the other doppelganger line that they're fated to be together with. Ketsia just put dreams in their head. No destiny, no nothing. It was just a witch who cast a spell so she could draw them together for her purposes. So even in that moment, it's a lie. It's like, what are we? I don't know. I don't know what was the intention with this. It feels dumb.
It feels deceptive. It feels like I was given hope. It was like, those of you who are sad that Damon got the girl at the end of season 4, don't worry, there's still a chance. Keep watching. Don't leave.
Back at the Salvatore mansion, they have put Stefan on the couch, and Elena's sitting by his side. She's holding his hand. She's putting his daylight ring back on. She then gets Damon to tell her about what Kitsia told him, the claim that doppelgangers are fated to fall in love, blah, blah, blah. Stefan finally wakes up, and everyone's like, oh, you're back. We're so relieved, whatever. And Stefan says, I'm sorry, I have no idea who you people are. Because Kitsia psychically linked him and Silas while they were in that cabin and burned through his mind and memory to disable Silas's psychic powers. So Stefan has retrograde amnesia. The episode in which they're dealing with that is kind of fun, despite all things considered. So Elena's on the phone with Caroline, who has already studied up on retrograde amnesia and a number of other medical and like sciencey topics. And Elena's like, you did all that for Stefan? And Caroline's like, of course I did. Which really puts into context where Elena's at this moment, right? It's like the idea that, oh, you went through so much trouble for this man. It's like, yeah, I love him. He means a lot to me. And Elena's like, wow, baffling to me. Elena goes to the Mystic Grill, where Stefan and Damon are hanging out. Damon's trying to take him down 160 plus years of memory lane. When she shows up, Stefan's like, remind me of your name again? And she's like, I'm Elena. And he says, Elena, cool. And he's smiling a little bit. And she looks at Damon and is like, you haven't told him about me? And Damon's like, 200 years is a long time. But obviously, like, Damon's like deflecting because of this whole stupid doppelganger fate thing. He's like he's hoping to keep Elena and Stefan separate, I guess, so they don't find each other again. I don't know what's happening.
I guess
here.
he was procrastinating, so he was like, let me go in chronological order so that I can hold off the whole Stelena thing for as long as possible.
I'm so curious to know how he planned on recounting their relationship. What the narrative he'd spin there would be. Because we know he recounted their relationship with Catherine differently when he met Elena. So I'm curious how he would recount the dynamic between the three of them to an amnesiac Stefan.
Well, I mean, back then, that was season 1, Damon, who was actively trying to drive a wedge between Elena and Stefan just for shits and giggles. This Damon, I'd like to believe, would be like, look, I already have Elena. Let me be honest that you two dated. We don't need to go into all the details. You saved her life. She fell in love with you, you dated, and then you broke up, and then I have her now, the end.
I'll leave out the 1.5 seasons where I was actively trying to mess you all up and being far too intimate with my brother's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. They take Stefan to the Salvatore crypt afterwards to try and remind him of his family history. Damon goes off after getting a text from Jeremy, so Elena is left alone with Stefan to do the recap. Stefan's like, how come I don't remember you? You're smart, you're pretty, you're funny, you're obviously the strongest woman in the world if you've got through all you got through, because she's telling them like the history of their Mystic Falls time. They go to the school where she's trying to recreate the moment that they first met to jog something. And that's a really cute thing when she's like, yeah, we bumped into each other outside the men's
That was
bathroom.
kind of cute.
Again, like, with ease, amnesiac Stefan, he has no memory of this girl, and the chemistry is just, like, off the charts. They fit like puzzle pieces. It's insane. They go to the top of the school building where she teaches him how to, like, vampire jump, which is something he taught her how to do. And she's like, yeah, you whooshed me up onto the top of the Ferris wheel one time. And he's like, oh, when we dated? And she's like, I thought Damon didn't tell you that yet. And Stefan says, I have amnesia. I'm not an idiot. That's a very common punchline in the Vampire Diaries where they're like, this thing has happened to me, but I'm not stupid. I'm not a dumbass like you think I am. She then tells him briefly about their relationship, the breakup, and about how she changed when she became a vampire. She leaves out the sire bond because I guess this is the Cliff Notes version.
Which, one of my issues with season 5, specifically with Elena, and we've discussed this with a friend of ours. She brought this up once, and I was like, this is so true, that the whole of season 4, it's like Elena is struggling to be a vampire. She never wanted to be. Damon is the only aspect of this new life that is bringing her any sort of joy or satisfaction, even before she decides to start dating him under the influence of a sire bond. And yet we get to season 5 where she's cured Catherine more out of necessity than out of her accepting that she's a vampire and she's fine with it. But she's apparently totally chilled. She's going to college. She's ready to start a new life as Caroline's dorm mate. She and Damon have had their summer of love. She has no misgivings about vampirism anymore. And I don't know, I have two theories. I don't know which is worse. Either the writers just forgotten. They were like, yeah, that's boring. We're done with that storyline. storyline, or they consciously decided that because she's now with Damon, fully and truly and wholly, all of a sudden being a vampire is something that she's happy with. And with Stefan, she never could have been happy as a vampire, but Damon is just giving her that extra something that makes it all okay.
Yeah. I mean, either of those suck. I think there's really no way to explain it other than we just fully pretend the Sayabond stuff never happened. We fully pretend that her issues with or rather it's like it's consistent with all of her issues having stemming from the Sayabond, but we're just pretending that it's fine, that happened and then it unhappened and now it is what it is. We're just like, we're ignoring that.
It's just that they then bring it back later on where it's like, oh no, Elena definitely still would love to take the cure if she could. And it's like, but you've been fine.
You've been great. You've been strappy top, summer loving. You have all the issues that you were struggling with vampirism are gone again because the Sayabond is gone and you can now be a normal vampire. You seem to be killing it. I don't understand what the issue is now. And it's like, of course, the greater issue with vampirism is like everyone around you is going to grow old and die and it's like you're going to live whatever. But it's like, I don't know. It seems crazy that like in this 1 year that you've been a vampire, that's suddenly now like unavoidable issue. I don't know. It's weird. I truly don't know.
On top of everything else that was going on, I didn't like it. I was like, this sort of feels like a brand new Elena. And I don't like that the implication is while Stefan was away and she was falling deeply in love with Damon, like deeper and deeper into this being consumed, all of a sudden she got over all the misgivings she's had about vampirism since season 2.
I guess sex with Damon will do that to you, you know?
Oh, that
it
can't be that good.
all your problems. That's what I'm saying! It's like it can't be this good, girly! No, is that good? This is crazy! Yeah, no, I don't have a good answer for it because it is really inconsistent. And it's inconsistent twice because they flip forth and then they flip back in the season right after that. So she and Stefan go to Wickery Bridge. She tells him how she nearly died the first time and he saved her. And the second time, she did die because she asked him to save Matt. And because he asked, why didn't I save you the second time? And she's like, oh, I asked you to save my friend Matt. And he's like, oh, so I'm an idiot. And I just... Something about this season, it's so small, but it pisses me off, right? Because it looks retrospectively on all the stuff that Stefan did in his relationship with Elena and goes, what a loser, what a boring scold. Like, because even when he's trying to figure out why they broke up, she tells him, no, you were great, you were kind, you respected my wishes, this and that, the other thing. And he was like, oh, I bored you to death. And it's like... why are we just shitting on Stefan all of a sudden this season? It really pissed me off.
They start to treat the Stefan relationship in the same way the show treats the Matt relationship, where it's like, it was sweet and you were in love, but it wasn't really that deep and it wasn't gonna last. Right. It was just like two young kids who thought, let's date because we're compatible, I guess. And eventually the passion went away and we moved on. And now it's like, it's almost as if they're saying, in relation to Delena, Stelena wasn't that deep. It was just a sweet little puppy love thing and we've moved past that. It's like, I'm not a child anymore. I look back at my high school relationship and I'm like, oh, that was nice, but ultimately I'm grown up now and I can see it for what it was. It was just a silly little... And I'm like, that is not true.
Firstly, because it's simply untrue, and secondly because it's like, now we're shitting on Stefan for being a good guy. It's the same thing we spoke about where I was like, I can't live in a world where like this is like a boring and unfit relationship because he's kind, because he respects her, because they're really sweet and good together. I'm sorry, you're never gonna convince me that that's not exciting and that's not a good relationship. It's just, you can't. And maybe I'm boring, prudish, vanilla, whatever. It's like, I don't care. This is shit. And you're not gonna shit on Stefan for that. You're gonna be like, oh, he's boring and oh, he's stupid for like doing what Elena asks of him. It's like, oh, so he's just supposed to let our friend die so she'll be miserable? And then she grows to resent him, but at least he's alive. Oh, so now he's Damon because Damon's the best possible option. Damon's the best partner who ever existed. I don't care.
Propaganda.
Retroactive propaganda. She holds Stefan's face when she's telling him about the first time that she saw his vampire face and told him not to hide, because he's talking about like how he feels like he's this monster. It's like it's all this weird energy. He then puts his hand over hers, and he's like leaning in to kiss her because it's this really charged moment. And I will say, in these moments, like, it is not just from Stefan's end. It is definitely like Elena is pulling from her end too. They're very close when they're talking. She's like got this like embarrassed blushing smile. And like when they're in this moment by Wickery Bridge where they're holding hands over his face and he's like leaning in, she's like kind of shutting her eyes a little bit like it's about to happen. And then she pulls back and she's like, I'm with Damon. Stefan frowns and he's like, my brother? And neither of you thought that's something I should know? And she's like, oh no, we weren't like explicitly hiding it from you. But the thing is, like, Damon was explicitly not telling him. And then she decided, okay, that's what we're gonna do. She stumbles over her words and she turns away from him. And he's like, just like that, the hunger returns and then disappears. And the thing is, he's effectively a new vampire, right? He has amnesia, so he doesn't remember. He found out the day before that he's a vampire. And they haven't really taught him control. If they did teach him anything about being a vampire, it was with Damon, which tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
They find him later at the Salvatore mansion and he is burning his journals. This is after like he feeds off of someone at the party, but Caroline interjects and stops him and reminds him of like who he is and who he can be or whatever. I think it was Jessie, and she ends up feeding him some blood. And he's burning his journal, saying he doesn't want to be that guy again because he's seeing all the entries about the Ripper and about the monstrous era. I had thought he burned the journals in season 3 when he was in his no humanity era, but this is where he burns them, when he has no memories. He says, so I'm leaving. He's got a kit bag over his shoulder. He's like, I don't care to stick around with you two. I'm gonna go hang out with Caroline, who I actually trust, and who seems to care about me, so deuces. And he leaves.
Which, fair.
And then Elena says something like, we need Bonnie, like a witch did this, then a witch could undo it. Which is crazy that it's like, what episode is this? It's like episode 4 or 5. And the moment where she's like, oh, I've got to do more than email Bonnie to contact her because I need a spell done, just pissed me off so bad. And that is the moment in which Damon, who found out, I think earlier that episode, tells her that Bonnie is dead. So they have a funeral for Bonnie in the woods. And that's that. The next episode, Elena at campus encounters a guy at Megan, her now dead roommate's memorial. She speaks to him and he's like, oh, I was a childhood friend of Megan. He's acting super weird. And she's like, oh, what's your vibe? And he disappears with the promise of returning in the episode because they focused on him a lot. And it's Sean Sipos, who was a CW actor at the time. She and Damon go to a costume party later that day. She's dressed as Anne Boleyn, which I thought was cute. They're talking about how she's stonewalling Damon now because Bonnie died 3 months ago. Stefan was drowning in the quarry. Meanwhile, she was having the summer of her life with Damon and was just fully unaware. So now she's like, I can't speak to you. I can't even look at you because it's really messed up.
And I'm like, Elena, sweetie, I will be the first or maybe second after Sandile to shit on Damon. But those are your choices that's not Damon's fault that you didn't check up on Stefan or didn't make sure that, Bonnie was alive.
Well, Damon consumed her, so it's really all his fault.
I'm like, Elena, this is you at your worst. When you are in a relationship with this man, you become so much more selfish than you ever were. And it's weird because her defining characteristic is supposed to be her compassion.
And her empathy and her love for her friends.
But man, oh man, she just becomes such a self-absorbed person when she's with him that I have to wonder, did the writers forget that it's supposed to be, Elena's humanity, her compassion? I'm like, this should all be heightened now that she's a vampire. But if anything...
Well, this is the thing, right? Because that was the narrative of season 4, which is what that whole storyline was like. Elena's compassion is heightened. She will not do well as a vampire who feeds off of people because the thought of hurting or killing someone in the feed might destroy her. And I think I said in the last session, she feeds off of a deer. The deer walks away perfectly fine and she's sobbing. So it's like, at some point, we did away with that Elena, right? Because Elena's dead in the ground, nail in the coffin. So that Elena no longer exists. This new Elena, who's Damon's girlfriend, Doesn't care about all that shit. And that's kind of if I have to give it a generous read, right? I believe a lot of people champion the Delena relationship because Delena pushes her to put herself first more often, to stop like martyring herself and like start being someone who looks out for number one. And that's like a positive thing, right? Because it's like, you're too ready to die, you should be wanting to live. Which again is something that was attributed to Stefan as well. But again, Stefan's dead in the ground, so who cares? So that is supposed to be the positive draw of Delena, but in season 5 they are painting this thing where, wow, Elena, you got with Damon and you stopped caring about your friends and your family. It's really weird. So it's like, what do they want is I'm sort of trying to understand in this season. What are we supposed to take away from this? It's both good and bad that she becomes this person with Damon. I don't know.
It's a dangerous, confusing, oxymoronic love that consumes her, and it's more exciting than what she had with Stefan, who... I mean, Stefan wasn't a 100% safe to date either. I was like, this is your blood addict boyfriend who started dating you when you were human. He sometimes loses his humanity, sometimes he's a ripper, but ultimately he's loving and respectful and kind and compassionate. He cares about the people you care about. But apparently that's all boring puppy love compared to Ian Smolderholder.
Oh, that's baby stuff. Damon's the real deal, you know? She then ditches Damon to go talk to the guy that she met at the memorial earlier.
Our short king.
Our short king, Sean Cyphers. As they're talking, he's still like refusing to tell her who he is. So she just straight up compels him and is like, did you kill Megan? And he says no. And she's like, then why are you being so shady? And he's like, because everyone around me dies. Friends, family. It's like a curse. One by one, I've lost every single person in my life. So she's like, shit, maybe I'm the asshole. And then she compels him to forget her questions. After that, he tells her, my name is Aaron. So, Aaron's around. Love him. Iconic character.
Aaron. More of the lies. I mean, maybe that wasn't a lie, but like there was a rumor. We've discussed this before. There was a rumor before season 5 that Elena would be getting a new love interest, which I guess would have been kind of crazy considering that we ended on the choice to be with Damon.
She's with Damon. Yeah. It's like in the season with Damon, plus the doppelganger fate nonsense they're trying to sell you on, and now also Aaron? Who, by the way, is not her type.
But I would have been here for it. Anything to dilute the amount of time dedicated to Delena.
But it's like, he fully does not fit any... Like, there's 3 people that Elena's been romantically entangled with, as far as we know, and that's Matt, Stefan, and Damon. And Aaron is not like any of them.
But he's so like a sad, lonely... Well, not lonely. I guess Elena's not lonely. But he's a sad, over-emotional boy whose family members and loved ones keep dying. And I'm like, she can relate! Bond over your shared trauma.
That's what I feel like. That's kinship, right? You see a mirror of yourself and it's like, yeah, it's very April Young is what I thought.
Yeah.
This was her April Young for this season rather than like a new love interest. So I was very surprised at that. He's also very small, which we love, but Elena seems to like a taller guy. So I don't... It just didn't fit for me.
I would have liked to see Vampire Elena dating a human boy, you know? And then...
Sure.
Now she's the strong one.
Fair enough. Listen, if they played him a little differently, I would have been all about it. But also, again, with all the other stuff going on, I just did not read it that way at all. Later, she finds Dr. Maxfield at the party, who's dressed as Dr. Jekyll, which I can't be mad about, being too on the nose, because I made a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde joke about Rick last session. So it's like, I'm not going to cast aspersions. So they start dancing together. He pulls her way too close. I think there's a conversation about like, wouldn't it be weird you being a professor and dancing with one of your students? I forget the first thing he says, but then after that he says, you are not and will never be one of my students. So this is perfectly fine. And I was like...
He's so sassy.
I'm like, okay, cool. It's still a little bit weird as a professor, but whomst am I?
I just like that he knows she's up to something and he's like, you're never getting into my class. So...
That's fair. She's like, hey, why did you lie about my roommate's cause of death? He says some bullshit about a mountain lion, but then 5 seconds later is like, you know what my theory is? I think it was a vampire who killed her and tossed her out that window. And it's like, oh, okay, we're just putting our cards on the table. Elena plays it cool, but the thing she says is so strange to me. She's like, what would you know about vampires? Instead of being like, A vampire? What are you talking about? That's insane. I don't know what the plan was there.
Maybe she was also deciding to just be mask off. She's like, you know what? I grew up in a town with a founders council, and then there was the whole Atticus chain of it all. Let's just rip the band-aid off. Okay, you know about vampires. Where do we go from here?
But she says it in a tone of like someone being like, what are you talking about? So it's like, if you're talking to him as someone who doesn't know about vampires, that's a weird way to say it. If you're talking to him as someone who does know about vampires, going, what do you know about vampires? Clearly a lot. So
Okay,
I don't understand.
Alternate theory. The show is currently in the year 2011, which, as I've said, wild for a season that was like 2014. But the show is currently in 2011. We do know that Twilight exists in this universe because Damon was reading the book in Caroline's bedroom in season 1. So she's pretending to be a Twihard in the midst of the Twi craze. Breaking Dawn Part 2 hasn't come out yet, and she's like, as a vampire fangirl, what do you know about vampires?
As an aficionado of the craft and the genre, what are you doing, poser? What are you talking about? That's the only thing that would make sense, I guess. He then leans in and says into her ear, there are people at the school watching you and your little friends, and they're asking questions that you don't want them to ask. So you need to pack up, drop out of the school, and move back to Mystic Falls. This statement presents a more sinister and imposing image of what we'll learn to be is the Augustine Society. At no point are they ever that prolific. Are they ever that dangerous? Are they ever that widespread? At no point is the Augustine Society that they set up at the beginning of the season a threat. It is only ever Dr. Maxfield, some shadowy benefactors, like people who are funding his research that we never meet, and that assumedly Damon just slaughters off screen because he's killing Augustine people. So it's like, I don't know what the conceit was here. I don't know what the goal was with the secret society bullshit. It goes nowhere. It is very, what is it called? The Initiative? Right?
Yeah,
Spoilers
yeah.
for Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 4.
Diet Initiative.
Except the Initiative, which I didn't like very much, but like they got shit done. And they had government funding. They went the military route where it's like, yeah, this feels like something. Even though they seem, for whatever reason, focused on this one town, I guess the Hellmouth, right? They were getting stuff done. What is the Augustine Society doing? They've had the same singular vampire for 50 years that they've been experimenting on, and that's it.
They're actually worse at their job than the Founders Council of Mystic Falls.
Truly. It's like, God, as the human faction, the Founders Council really isn't that impactful. Let's bring in a new human faction that does maybe less than the Founders Council ever does. At least the Founders Council burns the tomb vampires, right? They get that done before they get completely wiped out. At the end of the episode, they bring Silas's desiccated body back to the Salvatore mansion. It's not important, but like, courtesy of Kitsia, he's been desiccated. And they bring Catherine in to the house and feed her to Silas, because if you didn't know, Catherine, who took the cure, her blood is now the cure. So Silas has to drink the cure from her to become mortal like he's always wanted. And he drinks all the blood in her body and she survives. So that's how that episode ends.
It's wild. It makes no sense. Even if we've established in this universe that, like many vampire universes, vampires who have otherwise human structured mouths somehow have the ability to suck all the blood out of a person's body just using the normal suction power of their mouths.
I stand behind my super suction theory, but that's just me. I understand I'm a pseudoscience. I'm on my own island of study.
If you have super strength and super speed, why not super suction? It's fine.
You know?
The same mechanics by which Superman has his, like, super breath.
Right.
But I'm like, so Catherine gets completely drained of her blood and she lives.
Yep.
How? Her now
They don't take her to
entirely
a
human
hospital.
body.
She doesn't slip into a coma to protect her, like, severely malnourished body. She just wakes up.
They don't even try to resuscitate her. They listen with vampiring and they hear that her heart is still beating. And I'm like, Beating what? She's been drained
Beating
of blood.
what? Her blood is gone. And the alternative is that he didn't drink all her blood, he just drank a little bit, which is dumb for the way the cure works.
Yeah, the
So-
cure. I mean, actually, I guess that is how the cure works, because by the end of the show, someone is able to put a little syringe into their chest, draw out some of their blood, and that becomes the cure.
But that's not what they say at the beginning, is the thing. They say Silas has got to drink every drop from her body, and then he'll be cured. So screw that, and I hate it.
It's some strange alchemy. It's like the minute your blood leaves your body, the power of the cure like leaves with whatever amount of that blood.
And everything that's left in you is dormant. It just dies in your body because a
Everything
little
in
bit
you
is
just
gone.
dies. I have to assume the cure has some sort of lingering effect even when you are no longer the cure, because Catherine doesn't try to turn back into a vampire, which we
She does,
established.
and it doesn't work.
Oh, she does? Post-cure being sucked out of her?
Post-cure, they're like, why don't you just turn yourself into a vampire? And she's like, don't you think I've tried? It didn't take. Once you've taken the cure, you cannot be a vampire again.
So I guess it does have some lingering effect. It's weird. The mechanics don't make sense.
Doesn't.
I hate a magic system that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I would feel more compelled to hand wave it if it was like you need most of the, like 51-49% shareholding style. If you have more than half the cure removed from your body, then it passes on to someone else. But it's like they take like a sip at some point. Like multiple people take a sip of the cured person's blood and they're cured and it's passed on. It's so dumb.
And it always takes me back to that moment when Bonnie and Jeremy find that little that little dose of the cure in Silas's hands, and he's like, how is that supposed to cure every vampire in the world? And I'm like, apparently it could have.
Apparently it could have. Apparently we could all be sipping around the circle and everybody would be human.
Just form a long conga line, everybody sipping from the next person.
It's like, please only sip if you have been a vampire for less than 70 years or you will die. I'm so sorry. You will age and die. It's crazy. And it's like, assumedly, oh, Damon. I was like, does Elena have the cure? No, Damon by the end of the show has the cure. So I was like, why does Caroline continue to be a vampire? Well, because we're not going to kill Damon, right?
And because Caroline doesn't want the cure.
True. But it's like if she wants to be human with her human babies, it's like maybe on his deathbed, just show up and drain him dry. At least his death will be worth something. Of course, your children by then will be like 70. But then you'd age to match them and it would be kind of cute. I don't know.
Oh gosh, she would. She would rapidly...
She would rapidly age to death.
I hate the idea of ending your vampire life and then instead of continuing at the human point that you left off, it's like, oh, we're going to accelerate over all these decades and you're just going to be old now.
I kind of love that. It has consequence, right? It's like the original concept of witchcraft and magic. It's like everything's balanced. There must be a price to gain something. There must be a boon for losing something, that sort of thing. I like that it has like weight and consequence. It's like, yeah, you lived 100 years and you think you're just going to be now a hot and young human? No. You spent too much time on this earth. You have to die.
Estes rules, I guess.
Anyway, enough about the goddamn cure. Next episode, they make a deal with Silas, who, now cured of immortality, is just a 2,000-year-old witch. They're gonna help him find the anchor to the other side so that he can destroy it and die and find peace rather than being trapped on the other side with his true love, Amara. In exchange, he will bring Barney back to life using magic. It's not super relevant to Elena because they leave Elena at home and go off and do the main plot. Silas, like, magically shoots her with a crossbow arrow, and that's it. She can't go.
Oh, yeah, because he's like, I don't want to hang around looking at this woman who has the face of my true love, Amara.
And Damon's like, why is that a big deal? And Silas is like, if you were ever truly in love with somebody, you would understand. You would know that seeing an exact copy of them would just fill you with such repulsion. And then he has this, moment. And we briefly spoke about this before in the Damon episode, and it's like, the suggestion is that his love for Catherine wasn't true, right? Because when he saw Elena, he wasn't repulsed. He just fell in love with her. Elena is his actual true love, and Elena is everything above all. Ugh. Right? That's from both sides of this relationship. Stelena, dead in the water. Damon and Catherine, dead in the ground. Forget that he spent 150 years pining over her. Forget that all his villainous antics in season 1 were to try and get her out of that tomb. No, he didn't love her. It wasn't real. Wasn't real. She called Stefan for whatever reason. I think she's just trying to be like, you have to hang around me because I need you here, even though we're not dating anymore. When she calls his phone, though, she gets to Kitsia. which starts this stupid, pointless mean girl competition in this episode. Elena goes to the cabin. Why? I don't know. She tries to apologize to Stefan about what happened to him at the party because, yeah, right, Damon worked with Silas to snap Stefan's neck so that it would break the psychic link that they have so that Silas could use his powers. So Damon conspired with this guy who stole his life and drowned him for 3 months. It was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna snap your neck so that guy can get his powers back. And Elena's like, I wouldn't have let Damon do what he did to you. And Stefan says, sure you would have. You have this annoying tendency to do anything he tells you to do.
Oop.
Elena, shocked Pikachu face. And then, oh God, then Elena's like, I get that you're mad at us for everything, you know, that makes sense, but do you really think sleeping with Ketsia is gonna solve anything? And I just have to be like, why do you care?
Yeah, it's
why
like,
do you care who you're sleeping with?
Who are you, Elena? I know that Ketsia, the spirit of Rebecca, briefly entered her when she was on that call, and she was like, oh, Stefan's in the shower. Between us girls, he works up quite a sweat, which
Yeah.
I think Kate Hudson's character says the exact same thing to Rachel Berry in Glee.
About her stupid college boyfriend.
About her college boyfriend Brody, when she calls and she answers Brody's phone. She's like, where's Brody? And she's like, he's in the shower. Between us girls, he works up quite a sweat. And I'm like, is this a reference to something? Is this just a thing that women are supposed to say to each other? Like, what?
Maybe it's some code we don't understand, you know? We don't know the arts of, like, girl world. So maybe there's something going on.
Perhaps. And Ketsia, 2,000 years on the other side, she knows the art. She's seen it all.
She invented it. God, I love her. Ketsia's such an icon. Stefan's like, who told you I was sleeping with Ketsia? Who they're calling Tessa now, by the way. She's decided, I want a more modern name, Tessa. I will be dead naming her this whole episode because I think the name Tessa is ridiculous. And I think throwing Ketsia away is insane.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even really come from Ketsia. Like, the
letters are
next
there,
to
right?
each other.
There's a T, an E, an S, and an A, so it's fine.
It's giving Libby as a nickname for Elizabeth. And it's like, it's not Elizabeth or Elizabeth.
Oh, there's this great Kate McKinnon character from this one SNL sketch that's Abyssalith. She's supposed to be this, like, American old-timey religious type who maybe grew up on, like, a compound, quote-unquote. And her name is Abyssalith.
Now that sounds like a witch name.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like Ketsia, and it's like everyone in the show is pretending it's this unpronounceable name, and it's like it has 3 syllables. All these sounds are in English. To say.
I'm like, I'm South African. Come
Like-
say a closer Q. It's not like we asked you to say Ketsia. Like,
No one's saying Ketsia, so like, what are we talking about? Like, someone called her Ketsuyu. Damon says Ketsi whatever, and I'm like, you had 1 more syllable to go. You said most of her name.
I think Catherine,
It's so stupid.
Catherine in season 4 calls her Ketsuye.
Yeah.
She's like Ketsuye or whatever.
Stefan's like, who said I was sleeping with her? And Ketsia's like, oh, silly me, always causing drama. Elena then tries to leave because frankly, this is insane that she's here. But she can't leave because Ketsia invited her in knowing she'll be trapped with them because Silas has put a barrier spell cast on the house that's linked to the sun, so they can only leave at sunset. So now we have to spend the rest of Elena's time in this episode with Ketsia and Stefan canoodling in a corner while Elena's sulking with her arms folded in another corner of the house. Oh, also, Ketsia calls Damon and is like, kill Silas or I'll kill Elena, who came here because she was jealous of me with Stefan BT dubs. Hope that's not an issue.
Sowing the seeds of discontent. I have to be like, Ketsia, how old are you that you're behaving this way? Like, physically and, like, mentally? Because this is some high school nonsense.
Listen, the last thing that woman remembers is her husband leaving her at the altar for her best friend who looked exactly like Elena. So I don't blame her for shit. Thank you very much. And it's like this man who they're now dramaing over looks just like her would-have-been husband. Kitsia can do whatever she wants. She's 2,000 years old. She's an antagonist. I don't care. Elena, what are you doing? What's the plan here? So while the two of them are like sexily ordering pizza or whatever, Elena's trying to tell Stefan that this isn't him and he would never be with the likes of Ketsia, which is a lie because he was with Rebecca twice. So I don't know what this episode's about.
Also, I'm like, Elena, I don't know who you are to be judging people for who they're with, because Katsia has never done anything to Stefan. Damon has compelled you, endangered your life, threatened to kill you, threatened to turn you into a vampire, almost forcibly turned you into a vampire.
Killed your brother, abused your best friend.
Tried to kill your boyfriend, tried to kill several of your best friends, abused your best friend, turned Bonnie's mom into a vampire. I'm like, let's not start casting stones in the very brittle glass house.
The only thing Kitsi has done to Stefan is erase his memory, and that seems to have helped him. That seems to have given him some relief.
She saved him from drowning when you were having sex for 3 months and then going to college.
I'm sorry. This episode is so insane. This season is so dumb and I hate it. Season 5 is the worst season of the show.
But I guess, you know what? Some consistency for Elena. She does have this weird habit of feeling entitled
to her ex-boyfriends. That's
to her
true.
ex-boyfriends,
like,
or people who aren't
exes.
even her boyfriends. She was upset when Damon slept with Rebecca after the originals back in town party.
It's like, why are you mad, girl? Like, sort your life out. I'm so tired of this. But of course, Stefan, even though he has no memory, his hero antics are hardwired into his DNA. So at sunset, he stabs Kitsia, throws her across the room, and then grabs Elena and they escape. So... well, this is good. When they talk about it later, Stefan and Elena, she's like, even without your memory, you're still you. And he's like, well, you didn't seem like you deserved to die, so I was just going on instinct. This bitch says, exactly, your instincts were always to protect me. I'm sorry. Stefan would do that for anyone because he's a good person. I can't stand you.
It's like in season 5, all of the spicy, vaguely misogynistic criticisms that have been made of Elena, like, she's so selfish and dull and everything's about her and she's annoying. Suddenly all of that becomes true.
Yep.
In this era of her life.
She becomes the person that people criticized her ungenerously to be. She becomes the worst version of herself. And it sucks so bad. I really can't. I don't recognize this person. It's so bad for her and I hate it.
Like a disappointed parent, I look at her and I'm like, I don't know who you've become, girl.
I use our own line from season 3. I don't think you realize how bad you've gotten. Next episode, Elena comes to Stefan's room. It's the next morning, right after this has just happened, and is like, listen, maybe we need to stop trying to get the old you back and just start fresh. Hi, I'm Elena. Katsia has beat her to the punch though, because she came around the night before, and as revenge for betraying her, she gave Stefan all his memories back. And he is now returned, but he's a little bit off balance. Silas goes back on their deal, because I think they found Amara in the previous episode. She is alive, which nobody knew, and she's the anchor to the other side, which everyone is stunned by. So she drank the cure from him, and now she's also mortal, so the two of them are mortal and they want to die. Silas is like, actually, I'm not going to bring Bonnie back, because seemingly, I just don't like you, Damon, and I want you to suffer. It's never explained why Silas hates Damon so much, but purely on his dislike of Damon, he's just like, no, I'm not bringing Bonnie back.
Maybe he just has something against anyone who's the third point in a love triangle with someone who looks like Amara and someone who looks like himself.
But he hates Elena too. And he doesn't particularly care for Stefan for like doppelganger reasons, I guess. So it's like, what does he care about that love triangle? So weird, that man. But he's a weirdo, so it's fine. Bonnie is the one to come up with the plan for her own resurrection because nobody else can be trusted to handle this shit, as it turns out. After she's seen Amara, the anchor to the other side, who they've got in like a Salvatore cellar, and Amara is able to see her, and they're able to make physical contact, she's like, oh, we just need to switch me into this anchor position because she wants to die anyway. She can die. And then I'll take her place and I'll be able to interact with all my friends and loved ones. So they send Damon off to go convince Kitsia to do this. She comes over because she's like, yeah, I want to see that bitch die. She ruined my life. She comes and does the spell. That's when they have that cool moment when they do the doppelganger spell with all 3 doppelgangers around the table.
All 3 doppelgangers.
With the triquetra.
The vampire, the anchor, and the... the human Catherine. I do love how smug Elena is in that scene where they have to cut her finger and she's like, I'll heal, Catherine won't.
Yep.
And Catherine like rolls her eyes bitterly.
She's like, show off, and Elena's doing this little oh god.
And then again, I'm like, you see, again, in this moment, maybe it's just for Catherine's sake, but I'm like, Elena, you seem to be quite comfortable with your vampirism. Like, you're relishing in it.
You're pleased as punch. So why is it such a... Anyway, a lot of crazy stuff happens that doesn't matter to Elena. A lot of close calls where it's like, oh no, the spell might not happen, but it does. They do pull it off, and they bring Bonnie back. Not technically bring Bonnie back, they just make her the anchor. She's not technically alive, but she's not technically dead either. Which, interesting sort of metaphysically what's going on with her in that season. But
I have thoughts about that, but I'll leave that for a Bonnie episode.
Elena tries to talk to Stefan because Stefan's so focused on trying to kill Silas. It's a reflection of season 4 when she was focused on trying to kill Catherine and he was trying to talk it down because it's all the same, like doppelganger. One must destroy the other business. She tries to talk him off the ledge. It doesn't work. So after that, she tells Damon, who couldn't be asked about it, to go find him and stop him. Damon's like, no, he's just gonna kill Silas and they'll be fine. Classic Stefan. And she's like, no, he's hurting. He's going through a lot of trauma and we need to stop. And Damon looks like it's the biggest inconvenience you could have possibly presented him with that day to just be like, go help your brother. At the end, he does kill Silas. Elena comes into the woods to speak to him and is like, did it work? Will he be okay now? And Stefan's like, why is this so important to you? And she says, because while he was suffering in that safe, trying not to lose his humanity, she was happy. She got everything she wanted, lived the summer of her dreams. If I have to hear one more time about the summer of Elena's dreams, I may burn some shit down. I'm not even joking. That's starting to piss me off at this point. Was there a script requirement?
The sum of your dreams where you didn't see Bonnie once and Jeremy was going through the trauma of having to like come back from the dead and reintegrate into society.
Catholic. Tired of hearing about this shit. It's like every time she says, I'm like, who cares about the summer of your dreams other than you and Damon?
It's fine. Her parade gets rained on soon after, so this particular summer.
So she needs to know that this worked, that it will take away all his suffering, that he'll be okay. From a certain light, this is similar to what he was doing in her moment of trying to kill Catherine, right? Where it's like, I need to make sure that like this trauma is not going to ruin you. It's not going to overwhelm you. You're going to get out of this. But the way she says it is so framed on herself and assuaging her own guilt about not being present when he needed her. He will say in that next moment, I wanted it to be you when that safe opened, when somebody found me. And then Damon just enters the scene because we've had like 5 minutes without Damon and we can't have that. He's like, I wanted it to be both of you. When she says, it's like, I need to know that you're okay because when you were suffering, I was happy. So now I feel bad. And it's like, why is it about you? In this moment, his worst moment, why is it after that time that you weren't there for him? And to be fair, you were largely unaware, right? So that's fine. But like, this is your moment to show up for him and be like, let me help you through this. And you go, I need to feel okay that you're doing better now, that this revenge plan of yours worked. It's just so, I don't know, man. It's so weird.
I guess in trying to explain why she feels guilty, which is weird because I'm like, that sort of makes it sound like she wouldn't feel, like if she had a shitty summer, she'd be fine with Stefan drowning.
Right? It's like if you were also suffering, then it's okay. Then none of this matters. Then I can just go hop, skip, and jump away from the situation. What? You would think that these people were never in love, that they never... It's so crazy to me that, like, from Stefan's end, and you know what? Fair enough, right? She's in a new relationship, and this is kind of how it goes sometimes. It's like, he's like, God, you were the only thing that got me through that safe. I kept seeing visions of you and you were keeping me sane. And she's like, damn, sucks to suck, I guess. You doing all right? And also that moment with Caroline earlier where Caroline's like, yeah, of course I studied up on the shit that Stefan's currently going through so we can help him better. No brainer. And Elena's baffled. It's like, it starts to feel like, did she ever love Stefan? Like, what's the vibe here?
And I guess that's the point. They want to make, as I've said, they want to diminish the validity of the Stefan relationship so that it's like, oh, these two meant something to each other, yes, but it wasn't as deep as you all thought it was for the first 4 seasons of this show.
But at the same time, they'll try to pretend that Stefan's like a sticking point for this new relationship, that potentially that's gonna cause some hurdles. And it's like, well, no.
But that's all with the backdrop of the whole fated doppelganger thing that is now the theme song for this season.
It's so weird. Alright, it just sucks.
It's like destiny is gonna bring you two together whether you like it or not. So it doesn't matter how Elena feels. She's magically hardwired to fall back in love with this man who will never get over her.
It makes me ill. I don't like it. Whatever. Next episode, they learn that Dr. Wes Maxfield has killed Jesse, who had Caroline's blood in his system, so that he turned into a vampire. And he's been studying and experimenting on him. So he's now out and about attacking. Well, he's not attacking people. He is at first, I think, but then he starts feeding on vampires. Elena sends Damon to go question Wes, and Caroline is like, oh, you know he's gonna kill Dr. Maxfield, right? And Elena's like, no, he won't. He's just getting information. And Caroline's like, okay, but you're wrong, though. Like, who do you think you're dating exactly? We move away from that. Elena hangs with Aaron at this, I don't know what party it is. It's college. There's always a party where she learns that Dr. Wes is Aaron's legal guardian because Aaron's parents are dead. And I think recently his aunt died who was taking care of him. So, like, first he's like, yay, another orphan to bond with because Elena loves that. But seriously, like we said earlier, he is this mirror for her. She's lost so many family members in a short span of time. It's like kinship. But when he describes his parents' death, which sounds like a vampire attack, and when he tells her that Wes is the only family he has left, she then goes to call up Damon and make sure that he doesn't kill Wes. Which means she wouldn't have minded Damon killing Wes before learning this information.
Oh, yeah.
Felt no need to make sure until she knew, oh, this guy who I kind of like, that's his last remaining family. So now you can't kill him.
He's within the orbit now. He's inside the circle. So now she's like,
yeah,
okay, your life and the lives that you value, they're now important enough.
At least for now.
Also, is Aaron 17? Because he has a legal guardian.
Yeah, I guess he's 17, right?
Which, I mean, is not weird for American freshmen in college, I guess. But
no. Suddenly I was 17 when I started uni, so it's not like bad, but it is like, oh, you're a minor. So, not that these people care about all that, but... But yeah, she then finds Damon in a corridor where Jesse, who seems to be feeding on vampires thanks to Wes's experiments, is feeding on Damon. Elena shouts for Jesse to stop, and Damon's like, Elena, he's gonna rip my head off. And listen, this has happened before, but instead of snapping his neck, Elena finds a broken piece of a door that's just nearby, I think, and stakes Jesse in the back. Caroline, who's just come down the corridor, cries out and runs over to Jesse and holds him as he dies. Jesse, who she's become somewhat close with because they were vibing, and is like, Jesus, the Elena I used to know would have given Jesse a chance. So that's fun. I think later in the episode, Caroline apologizes for being out of line. Insane. But then she tells Elena, listen, you need to understand that the outside world is not nearly as dangerous as the person you are inviting into your own bedroom. So, that's where that one ends.
She's so real for that. Caroline, the lost voice of reason in a world infected with Delena.
Infected is a stretch. Everyone else is just ignoring it. I can't think of a single other person at this point who's like concerned with this relationship. Next episode, she's consoling Aaron because Jesse is Aaron's friend and there's now another person, another loved one who has died on Aaron. So he's like, well, damn, this curse is eternal, huh? She tells him, well, I know you're grieving, but my boyfriend's missing. And the last time I spoke to him, he had gone to speak to your Uncle Wes, who's secretly part of some secret thing going on at this campus. So I need you to help me find them. So they go to Whitmore House, where she learns that his name is Aaron Whitmore, and he essentially owns the whole school. She then sees a picture of the, like, Augustine Society, which is not so secret a society as it turns out, and she sees her father amongst the people in that picture. Wes Maxfield shows up and is like, yeah, Dr. Grayson Gilbert is one of the most esteemed alumni of the Augustine Society, and then jabs Elena with the vervain jabber and throws her in a cell next to Damon. Aaron has a talk with Wes, who tells him about vampires and the supernatural and about all the work that they've been doing in secret. And then Aaron wanders down into the cells where Damon and Elena are.
This is, I guess, at the same time that we've been in the Enzo of it all and Damon's time in the Augustine Society. And you can go back and listen to the Damon episode for that. But long story short, Enzo put it into Damon's head that the perfect revenge on this society would be to not just kill every single member, but to create a little family curse whereby you always leave one person alive so that they can reproduce, give the family tree some decades to branch out, then come back, rinse and repeat, kill them all over again, and so on and so forth. Turns out Damon and his machinations are the reason for Aaron's quote-unquote family curse, which I must say, when Aaron brought this up, I was like, oh, he's just someone being dramatic, that everyone around me dies. And I was like, oh no, it's actually like a thing. Like
it's very true.
Something in this world is actively working against you. It's not a curse. It's just Damon.
It's just Damon Salvatore single-handedly wiping out your family.
And when Aaron goes downstairs and reveals to Elena that he has worked out what's been going on here, Elena's like, what? Damon, you've been killing off this boy's family members, like, systematically over the years in this creepy little cycle that you have. Aaron makes clear that, yeah, I've lost family pretty recently as well. This isn't something that, like, the last time it happened, I was 5. This has been happening. So Elena asks Damon, when was the last time you killed a family member of Aaron's? Like, when last did you do this? And Damon's like, during our summer of love, just a couple of months ago, I took a little trip. And I'm like, I don't know how he disappeared for long enough that Elena didn't notice, because Lord knows she wasn't spending any time with Bonnie, so I don't know who she was with for that day. But she is understandably disappointed and disgusted that Damon, who is supposed to have changed, and they've changed each other, he's made her embrace her drive for life, and she's made him a better person. She's fixed him, quote unquote. Oh no, he's still been dealing with his trauma by murdering innocent people.
Actively slaughtering people.
And lying about it. It's not even like he's this person and he was at least honest. Because very often, Damon will be like, Elena, why do you want me to be different and be better and be more like Stefan? This is me. Accept me. I'm broken and horrible, but you love me anyway. No, this time he was actively deceiving her while they're meant to be in this relationship that has overcome all of its obstacles from season 4. There's no more Stefan as an option. Klaus has left town. Catherine is gone. We love each other. And it's like, no, he's just as bad as he was in season 1, if not worse.
I really think, and like, this is only if you're taking it within the text, because metatextually, it's like, right from a writing standpoint, why do you want to make this character worse than he already is? He's already so bad. And we've decided at the level of bad he is that this is acceptable and fine and they're in love and it's great. So you've already sold majority of your watchers of that. Now you want to make him worse? What's the plan here? So that's metatextually. From a text standpoint, it's like Damon being this like supposed best option for her because of all the reasons we've spoken about, and her just like accepting some of the like worser parts of him, and then going further into the relationship and finding, oh no, you're still this awful, like, murderous guy. It's this weird seesaw that's happening where it's like, it matters, it doesn't matter. It matters, it doesn't matter. And it's like, we have to make it a big deal because if we didn't, then Elena is a monster, right? It's like, if Elena is unaffected by this, then she is monstrous because this is so messed up. But the thing is, at some point, she will just accept it. So she is a monster, right?
Oh, she is. Elena is.
She becomes a monster in this season.
For all this nonsense, bringing back Rose from the other side so that she can root for Delena because nobody else was going to. For all this nonsense of, oh, Damon is the best thing for Elena, or at the very least, as good for Elena as Stefan is, just in different ways. It's like, no. Her relationship with Damon, if you want to attribute all the changes that happen in seasons 4, 5, and 6 to the Delena of it all, it made her worse. She's objectively a worse person when she is with Damon.
But it's writing this middle line that makes no sense because it's either her being with Damon, she doesn't care about this shit, so she should just go full in and be like, who gives a shit? Or she does care, And she throws the man away because clearly he hasn't, because there's this false thread that runs through these 2 seasons that it's like, oh, Damon changed for the love of Elena, but textually has not changed at all. And so there's this dissonance that's like, well, then why are you with him? Unless you yourself are just monstrous now.
Doesn't she leave him in the cellar, or is she taken away by someone?
She gets snatched by Wes. She gets snatched by Wes to be experimented
Oh, she gets snatched, and we and Damon briefly think that, oh, she's just left him in the cellar. And for a moment, I was like, that's cold, but you know what? Deserved. Because Elena, like you said, she sees this kinship in Aaron. It's like, oh, somebody who's lost so much, somebody who's suffered. And Elena knows that in her own life, a lot of the death has been because people were actively trying to hurt her and her loved ones. Grayson and Miranda died because of an accident, but Jenna, Isabel, John, a lot of these people she's lost, it's been because Klaus or Catherine or whoever was like actively trying to cause harm. So to then find out that this person who's been through similar experiences, their big bad is Damon, the man you love.
Her active boyfriend.
I can understand why it rocks her soul, but it rocks her for like all of 1 episode.
2 seconds. 2 seconds it matters. And then we completely throw it under the rug and never address it again. We do briefly, but I wanna...
Oh, we're gonna get there
by
too.
then it doesn't matter. We'll get
It seems
there.
as though the show, when it comes to, Damon is always having its cake and eating it too. And it's like...
Right. That is the expression, yes.
Yeah, we can make Damon progressively worse, whether it's like retroactively things he's done or things he still believes or mistakes that he makes. And Elena will be like, Damon, that's bad and I disagree. But as long as Damon at some point turns around and says, I'm sorry, that was bad. I'm not saying I'll never do it again, but I will acknowledge that that wasn't a good thing. Elena's like, that's fine, we can move forward. As long as you acknowledge that it wasn't okay.
And it's like, oh, oops, I've done it again. It's like, what the hell are we doing here? And I don't want to be in this hell loop. I didn't do anything to deserve this. Like, I don't care. Anyway, Wes snatches Elena at the end of the episode, and however he manages it, Damon escapes.
I think Aaron lets him out when he convinces Aaron that Wes is going to hurt or kill Elena, who, whatever you might feel about me.
Insane.
She's innocent.
Insane, because then in that next episode, he then comes to threaten Aaron's life to get to Wes. So... Poor Aaron, trying to do the right thing, got screwed over anyway. Oh, the thing I was gonna say, it was to do with the Augustine Society and the whole sense of like, because they're experimenting on vampires, right? That's like the big horror of the Augustine Society is that like vampire blood has a lot of healing properties, and these doctors are experimenting to test the extent of it and trying to use it to better human society, to better people. And so it's so weird that in this season they present Augustine Society as this horror because they're torturing vampires, and it's like, okay, well, they tortured Enzo and Damon. I don't think there's a single other vampire who was in those rooms. They say Grayson was torturing somebody. Well, that was Enzo, is the thing. When Elena in this episode starts to get these flashes of memories as a kid in this place, in her dad's clinic in Mystic Falls, which is where Wes has taken her to. And Wes tells her, he's reading a diary of like medical notes from studying vampires. She's like, I don't want to hear about your disgusting actions. She's like, this is your dad's diary, honey. He was working with Augustine to try and turn vampire blood into a cure-all. And I'm like, okay, I get that a bunch of the people we care about now are vampires. And it would suck if they were snatched by Augustine and experimented on. However, vampires, on average, are feeding from and killing people. Humans are food to vampires by Damon's own ideology, right? He's the apex predator. He can eat whoever he wants and like live his life. As humans, getting the means to, one, entrap vampires, and two, use these vampires that are always feeding on and killing you. Being able to use a part of them to like cure congenital heart diseases, to heal injured people, to like do all this cool medical stuff. It's like, I don't know, kind of interesting. I think the episode's called 50 Shades of Grayson, and this is the most compelling bit about any of this Augustine shit, is Grayson Gilbert and his decision to start experimenting on vampires to help people in a medical capacity. Because it's like, hey, it's interesting that a human decided to do that. And honestly, can you really condemn him when it's like, he's helping people and he's stopping an active threat? two people. For as much as it's like, now we have vampires in our inner circle.
In answer to your question, can you really condemn them? Yes, because now most of the people Elena cares about are vampires now, and even we've discussed the whole, Damon killing Aaron's family thing.
Right.
Even part of the reason she's able to forgive that is because she's like, no, Damon, I acknowledge that people who like cut into your eye and tortured you for like, I don't know, 7 or 10 years or whatever it was.
It was 5.
That's horrible, and you're traumatized, and I can understand why you've been murdering innocent people for the last 50 years. It's because you're a sweet little broken soft boy and these people hurt you. So I can let it slide.
So there is this thing too, and I mean, that is what it is. You're absolutely right. But there's this thing that they try to do, and I spoke about it earlier. In a broad sense, I like it, where it's like, ooh, vampires are this big threat, but when humans have the means and the access, they can be just as big a danger as vampires are. And it's like, yeah, that's fair and good. But there's a vibe here, and I don't know if it's intentional, where it's like trying to sell Augustine as this like medicalized torture situation, right? You think of Henrietta Lacks, you think of the Tuskegee experiments, where it's like in the United States, in the history of the United States, there has been a lot of medicalized torture to make advances in science, and it was the torture of minorities. It was the torture of black and brown people. And that's the element that's the sticking point for me, because sometimes the show will be like, our vampires are sometimes an allegory for minority. And I don't think it works. One, because there are black vampires who still experience racism in this world. We had the Harper situation where it was like, what's going on there? It's never fully explored, but like Harper's having a fully different experience from his white counterparts as a vampire, right? And 2 is that like, it's the Zootopia of it all, where they try to do a minority allegory, but the minority is like an actual danger, where it's like, oh, the predators were dangerous, but then we cured them of that. So now we can live in a shared society. It's like, oh, minorities are a threat to white people, but once we get rid of that programming, now we're good. It's like, do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So it's like,
it was feeling very X-Men comics. Like,
yeah, and X-Men comics as a that metaphor is also muddied, but I've heard some explanations as to why it still largely works as a minority metaphor. But for Vampire Diaries, I don't think it does, or at least I don't think the nuance of writing in the show can sell it as a minority allegory. And it just feels like that's what Augustine was meant to be, and I don't like that. Especially because you think of Damon and Enzo, maybe less so Enzo because he's an orphan from the London Toodlepip streets, but like Damon who's a Confederate soldier from 1864. I think there was definitely a skew to the people he was feeding on in them days. Just based on how society is set up, who are the people who won't be remembered? Who are the people who no one will notice if they've been harmed or if they've been killed off? All the actual dynamics that are in play because Damon and Enzo are white, and because they are from like 100 or 200 years ago, and who their victims were. Because of the Confederacy of it all, right? They're in a Confederate state. Like, they're in a red state. I don't think the allegory works when we're talking about these people. Just all the Augustine stuff, just fully, I don't care that Damon was tortured for 5 years is what I'm trying to get at, right? It's like, it doesn't work as a selling point for me that like, ooh, Damon, this big, sad, whatever. It's like, that sucks, obviously. Nobody wants to be tortured, nobody should be whatever. But it's like, ultimately, I'm more interested in the humans who are trying to do all the like medical breakthrough stuff and what that vibe was and how far down the road did you go with this ideal in mind. That's the more interesting part of the equation for me. And we don't really explore that because we don't care.
Yo, yeah,
the humans are the bad guys.
That fizzles out very quickly. And you would have to think they must have accomplished a lot, because just in terms of like how long it's been since Grayson had vampires locked in his office basement, I'm like, this has been like 2 decades. Did you manage to accomplish anything? We know he healed Hayley Kiyoko, but we don't know how.
If you're able to heal a congenital heart disease with your experiments, it's like, obviously, if you're indiscriminately experimenting on vampires, there may be some vampires who are like, I actually just drink blood bags and I don't hurt anybody, and that's messed up.
Yeah, the Carolines and Lexis of the world.
Damon is not that guy. Enzo is not that guy.
It would have been interesting to see Elena maybe take take this thread and go in a
Yes.
better direction with it. Was like maybe let's because there are medical advancements that are made through like people volunteering or being paid to be part of studies, and it's like maybe you as a vampire who all of a sudden develops an interest in medicine this season,
clean this shit up.
yeah, you could like get vampires to consent to be part of certain things.
There's no sense of, because even in that, right, I mentioned the Tuskegee experiments, which if you don't know, look it up because it's a really messed up, I would say, piece of American history, but that's largely what American history is and nobody talks about it. Look up the Tuskegee medicalized torture, look up Henrietta Lacks, who she is the reason that we have a lot of vaccines that we have today. They would then go on in terms of like the regime of medical experimentation, go, okay, now we're going into like the world of, okay, people consent and sign this waiver, but it's like you get compensated. So what do you have? A lot of like marginalized or downtrodden people in society. This is the only way they can make money. And so they give of themselves to experimentation. Sometimes they don't get all the information as to what's going to happen because it's like homeless people, maybe people who don't have a full education. That's the sort of territory we're getting into. With vampires in this universe, you don't have that issue.
Yeah.
Because vampires have compulsion and vampires have vampire blood. They aren't ailed. They will heal from anything. Vampires can compel themselves into a life of like means. So you don't have any of those concerning implications of real-world medicalized experimentation. So absolutely Elena could have done that. But the thing is, they don't care about the Elena and Grayson thing in the context of her discovering this about her dad and reflecting on the reality of vampirism and humanity. They care about it in the sense of she can excuse what her dad did so she can excuse what Damon did.
Ugh.
That's it.
Yeah. And you have to assume that elsewhere in this world, people are studying vampire cells and physiology because we know that in the originals, a synthesized cure for werewolf venom is developed. Somehow.
Somehow the synthesized cure returned.
I don't know, maybe Lucian was secretly one of the benefactors for the Augustine Society.
It was the Cylines were at war, the Strix were handling it, maybe, I don't know.
You know, it's like when you're reading an X-Men comic and you find out Mystique, for whatever reason, is secretly working with the humans experimenting on mutants, and it's like, what? Et tu?
Yeah, I think actually we've covered this whole episode in this long rant. Oh, the reason Megan became their roommate and came to Whitmore is because Elena's dad had healed her of that congenital heart disease, and as she grew older, she became more suspicious of what exactly was Grayson Gilbert doing in terms of medical practice, which her parents were funding. So she came to Whitmore because that's where it was happening. She became Elena's roommate because she is Elena Gilbert. And that night when she died, she had gotten to the basement of Whitmore House where she ran into Enzo, who was locked up. Assumedly, not knowing he was a vampire, she thought there's just some prisoner who's locked up, let him out, he chased after her and killed her. So that's what happened to Hayley Kiyoko, if you want to know. Finally, Wes reveals that he is making Elena an upgraded version of what he did to Jesse. And she says, "You can't do that to me. You'll turn me into a Ripper."
I know you hate this part.
This storyline. The synthesized Ripper virus. I hate it so much. He injects her. Stefan shows up and breaks her out. And, this is cool. Before he can get in, she musters enough strength and headbutts Wes, and he falls unconscious. Yeah, she goes home to Damon, and they talk about the fact that he killed Aaron's entire family, and she's like, "No, it's okay." And Damon's like, "No, it's not okay, and I'm not good for you." So they break up, I guess, at the end of this episode. It's not real, so don't worry about it. Next episode is 500 Years of Solitude. Catherine is dying, everyone celebrating. Elena drinks to the very many things that Catherine has done to her, but also a lot of stuff starts getting attributed to Catherine that's actually Damon's fault. Later, he even says, "Every awful thing I've ever done is linked to her." So,
and I'm like, only if you pull the thread and say that the fact you're a vampire is because of her, which okay, fine. Okay. But I'm like, you killing Aaron's family has nothing to do with Catherine. That was independent of you trying to get her out of the tomb or you being in love with her. And even if we had to blame every single vampiric thing he ever did on Catherine, I'm like, you were a Confederate soldier, and that's pretty awful, too.
Predates your goddamn vampirism. And also in this era of interrogating how Damon is supposedly... Because they've decided we're talking about, like, oh, Damon's so bad for Elena. We are doing a lot of work to shift blame away from Damon in this season. So I don't understand what they wanted. It feels like they're walking both sides, and I don't know who they're trying to make happy with this. It's so confusing and baffling.
They're creating obstacles for the relationship because previously the obstacle for Stefan and Elena, I guess, was the Damon simmering under the surface of it all. And then also like episodes of going off and being a ripper. Now it's like, well, we can't just do the reverse and have the problem for Delena be, you know, Stefan simmering under the surface. Stefan is largely not doing anything this season anyway. It's just the doppelganger nonsense.
He's got other stuff going on.
So instead it has to be, what if there were worse aspects of Damon's personality and history that Elena now has to reckon with, and that's the obstacle. But because we're also the writers, we can just write around these obstacles and make Elena get over it whenever we want her to.
So it's like, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters beyond the episode in which it's discussed.
Yeah.
So Stefan comes out and tells them to knock it off or take it somewhere else. Homegirl is literally on her deathbed. Talking about Catherine. And Damon is like, oh, now that you've slept with her, you're her white knight. And Elena's like, what? Because as we know, Elena is very, very fixated on who her boys are sleeping with when they are not dating her. Rolling plot for this episode, Nadia, who's Catherine's daughter, if you don't know, is trying to save her. So she buries Matt in a safe on the Salvatore property to coerce the Mystic Falls gang. Stefan and Elena are the ones who go to help her. And I was like, why these two specifically? And it's because they need to do doppelganger stuff. Nadia says, I had a feeling you two would volunteer. I'm not sure why that is, but it's funny that it's like, those are exactly the two she needed. So I don't know what that meant. Elena's trying to talk Nadia out of her plan. She's reminding her how Catherine hurt Nadia, her own daughter, and like how awful, irredeemably awful she is. Stefan's speaking for Catherine and being like, listen, she's just a survivor. And Elena's like, hey, don't come to her defense, especially now that... And Stefan's like, what? Now that I've slept with her? I'm sure you have plenty to say about that. So at least in the story... At least in this story, they're being like, it's kind of weird, Elena, that you're always so fixated on this. Nadia takes them to some travelers. She sells them out in exchange for them teaching Catherine the passenger spell so that they can use it to passenger Catherine into Nadia so her spirit will survive. None of this matters. The travelers trap Stefan and Elena in this worn down house and take some of their doppelganger blood. And then at the end, she comes to Catherine's bedside. Catherine, who has just willed her dead spirit back into her body by her sheer desire to survive. So, just wanted to throw that out there.
Technically a traveler, I guess. So
it's in her blood. It's in her soul.
She sees that she's on the other side and she's like, no, not yet.
It's not my time. Elena has come to forgive her and to tell her, listen, girlie, you weren't born evil. Your life made you that way. You had a hard run. You had to make a lot of decisions, and now you are who you are. I just needed to get that out of the way because I don't want to ever lose that empathetic part of myself.
It was a sweet scene. I mean, you know, before the ending, it was a sweet scene where Elena was like, firstly, it's like, Elena, your soul is not without sin. At this point, I don't think that you can judge. I think given 500 years, you would have screwed over a lot of the same number of people.
And maybe that's what she's saying. Yeah. She is saying that, like, I slowly come to understand you.
Yeah. And she's like, out of everyone, I can understand what you've been through. I had Klaus chasing me down. I had people after my doppelganger blood every other day of the week. I fell in love with the Salvatore brothers. We are mirrors of each other, and more than anybody else, I can understand that maybe if you'd had the privileges that I have had in terms of... If I had been your
mother.
Yeah. If I had been your mother. No, maybe if you'd had loving friends and family around you, people willing to die for you the way everyone's always willing to die for me, you wouldn't have ended up the Catherine Pierce. I forgive you.
And Catherine's like... You know what? Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you give me one last syringe as a dying woman so I'm not in pain as I go out. And Elena's like, yeah, sure, why not? And she's holding her arm as she reaches out and injects Catherine with, I assume, some sort of anesthetic, some sort of pain dulling medicine. Catherine reaches out with both hands to Elena's head, grabs her by the temples, and starts casting the passenger spell and jumps her spirit into Elena's body.
Love it. I'm like, you know what?
Oh!
All of y'all are, well, not all of you, Stefan and I guess Elena in that moment, stupid for forgetting who this is.
True. Listen, they got lured into it. She was playing I'm the dying old woman. Please feel bad for me. It's what she does. So the next episode, she is mostly possessed by Catherine. She will briefly gain control every once in a while, but she will lose it just as quickly. There's one moment where she's like got full clarity. She comes through for a good amount of time. She sees she's in a cave with Nadia, and there's a traveler there casting a spell by herself somehow, which is not how Traveler's supposed to work. She does say, don't have access to traditional magic, so I have to improvise, because she's playing around in Elena's like body, her like vampire body, to like draw power. So that was interesting, but also it's like, I need more of this. Elena plays it cool. When she learns what's happening, that they're trying to jump Catherine into her body like permanently, she's like, I'm not going out without a fight. Rushes over. I thought she snapped the Traveler's neck, but I guess she must have just knocked her into a wall or something. Nadia's like, Elena, and tries to do... she tries to do the V to summon a passenger forward to bring out Catherine. Elena has already grabbed this long-ass torch and stabs Nadia before she can get the full words out. And she says, what was that? I couldn't quite hear you. And then stabs her even more and runs off. Badass moment. I can't take that away from her.
And I'm like, Elena, you should have been smart. You see, even dating Damon has even made her lose her smartness. Because I'm like, yes, you're running off. Maybe you don't feel like killing someone. Rip out her tongue, which will take a good hour to grow back. So she can't say
Do something. Do something. Like, these people are trying to kill you, girly. She flips through the woods. She tries to unlock her phone, but Catherine's put a pin code on it.
Clever.
So she blocks it, I think. Very clever. She's getting flashes of Catherine's memories that are starting to overwhelm her because back in the cave, the Traveler's completing the spell. She starts seeing Catherine's family in Bulgaria, the birth of her child that was taken away, when she ran to England and met the originals. It's all footage from the prior season. And untricked Stefan when Catherine's like, well, I fooled one of you. Sets up the next couple episodes. Catherine killing Jeremy in the Silas cave, and then the fight where Elena fed her the cure. Finally, she gets out of the woods. She finds Damon at a party that's just happening there, always a party, and leaps into his arms. And just then, her eyes go black. The spell is complete, and Catherine is passengered into Elena's body permanently. Catherine, of course, stages this big, dramatic breakup with Damon, because she don't want Damon. She's going after Stefan. The next 3 episodes we're going to skip, because we'll save that for a Catherine episode. But just know, Catherine is playing Elena fairly well, and is just up to some antics and causing hella drama. Refusing to leave Mystic Falls, because she's crazy. Elena comes back in episode 16. We open on a big party where she's pulling a Coyote Ugly at the college bar. Everyone drinks and they're celebrating, and then the tone shifts with the music and she's like, am I that easy to impersonate? Or do you guys not know me at all? When have I ever decided to dance on a bar half naked? And she's like up in their faces trying to tell them, Catherine has taken over my body. This isn't me. Nobody's listening or nobody's understanding her. And then she wakes up in her dorm room from a nightmare. The first thing she notices is her hair is all wavy, and that stupid red streak is gone. I was so glad.
Boo!
Listen, Catherine's always gonna have better taste. I'm sorry. She leaves her room, and the college is fully empty. But Stefan appears, and he tells her, listen, everybody's gone, it's spring break. She goes towards him, but hits a barrier spell. And he tells her, baby girl, it's been 3 weeks. Also, Catherine has injected you with the Ripper virus. So that's that. Elena's like, okay, fine, let me speak to Damon. And they're like, no, Damon's in a Salvatore cellar. He's also got the Ripper virus in him. So this is a mess. So they get on the phone and they start talking. Stefan comes over after the phone call with a little water bottle with 4 ounces of his own blood so that she can drink, because this Ripper virus makes them want to feed on other vampires. So he's like, this will curb your cravings. You won't be skating walls like Spider-Man, but like you won't die. We're trying to figure out how to undo this. Caroline's on it. She downs it and she's like, I need more. Stefan's like, whoa, girly. She's like, no, it's fine. I'm fine. I can handle this. And he bites his wrist and holds it out, and she immediately vamps out and rushes into the barrier trying to get to him. So clearly they're Rippers, so they can't control themselves.
The Ripper virus, which I'm like, I mean, let's talk about the Ripper virus briefly, I guess, because it doesn't really, it's not Stefan's storyline, so we can't really save it for a Stefan episode.
No.
But we learn that, because first Rippers are just like, it's just a term used for, a vampire who doesn't have control.
Surprisingly, very briefly.
Yeah, and then they specifically start to write it as if, no, it's something that's like addiction, like it's hardwired into this person's genetic makeup.
Mm-hmm. It seems to happen with more empathetic, like, people. It's this natural inclination when you are turned into a vampire and you, like, have trauma with, like, hurting people to feed on them, which is what they say about Stefan.
And then in this season, which exists in its little island, we get the Ripper virus, which I'm like, I guess we've somehow found a way to alter the brain chemistry of vampires who don't have this addiction and give them the addiction.
Yes, we are medically turning people into addicts.
And I'm like, I guess if we're being sci-fi about it, you could do that in a sci-fi sort of story. But it's weird that that's where they go. And then a season later, they're like, oh no, being a Ripper is absolutely genetic.
It is, in fact, hereditary. And Stefan's a Ripper because his mother was a Ripper. I think Lily's Ripperness is consistent with Stefan because, like, addiction can also be hereditary. And they are both of their family. They are the similar figures who are, like, the more compassionate, the more empathetic characters. And vampirism did that to them.
And both quite traumatized, I guess.
Exactly. Their like transition was very traumatic. This, I inject you and you become a Ripper. No, I don't care for it. And I think it's stupid. I think it cheapens Stefan's experience.
Yeah, and at this point, the Ripper term had become exclusive with that experience that Stefan and later Lily has. And I'm like, if this is just uncontrollable hunger, you could have called it something else.
So many vampires.
Because we've seen so many young vampires struggle with the hunger. Caroline in her early days struggled with this. We later on, in the originals, we see that a certain dapper Michelson brother also has issues with feeding and violence, especially from back in his early days. But he's never called a Ripper. So it's like, why did it need to be? You couldn't think of another word?
This is all bullshit, and I don't care about it. But they need something, right? They need hurdles, they need obstacles, they need something to happen to tie them to the main plot, because
like most of the obstacles, it gets overcome pretty quickly.
Yeah, one episode. Elena asked Stefan why Catherine stayed in Mystic Falls, and she's like, Kathy, she wanted it all. And Elena's like, oh, you mean she wanted you? She asks if they ever, and he says, okay, well, we kissed. And she's like, okay, and Stefan says, and then I pulled away because I put it together. She wasn't you. Because as always, Stefan is the one to know. Stefan's the one to figure it out because he knows Elena that well. Later, Elena tries to call Aaron because the last time they spoke was in the Augustine cell. She gets to his voicemail. She goes to then write in her diary and be like, dear diary, everything sucks. Catherine stole my whole life. But before she can write anything, she sees the last entries from Catherine chronicling what she's been doing this last time. She's like, my life is so epic. I'm so joyful. Screw Elena Gilbert. I'm living her life better than she could have. Which I thought was funny.
Catherine. In her diary, no less.
She slips back into the memory of Catherine and Stefan at this Motel 6 on the road to go find Damon in his Ripper era, which is when Catherine kisses Stefan in Elena's body and Stefan pushes her away and is like, we shouldn't, I don't wanna. But it then turns into this nightmare where they keep making out and then like starts getting hot and heavy and Elena shoves him away and he's like, what's your problem? And Elena's like, it's not me, can't you tell? And I'm like, this now is revisionist. Like, Stefan just told you he figured it out. Why is my boy being slandered? But clearly something's going on with Elena. Something about this Ripper experience is messing her up in a way that it hasn't done to Damon. She then starts bleeding from her nose when she comes back to, like, consciousness. On the phone with Damon, she learns that Damon has killed Wes. And she's upset because she's like, that was Aaron's last family member. But like, she says it to him like, Damon, I told you not to eat the last cupcake. I was saving that for later. That's the vibe of that conversation. Then she starts seeing Aaron with a neck wound, vampire style. And in a panic, she asks if he's dead, if she did this. She then wakes to see, I've written here, short king college student with a kit bag over his shoulder who says, Elena Gilbert, get up, you lush. This is, of course, Luke Parker, her gay bestie she doesn't remember making. He's speaking to her like he knows her. She doesn't remember him at all. Overwhelmed by her vampire thirst, she compels him not to move and feeds him blood as she tries to turn him. But before she can snap his neck, she's about to do it. She sees the bite marks on his neck and realizes Catherine was feeding from him.
Which was Luke just gonna let that happen? Or
apparently so.
Apparently
so.
So deep in the role, he was like, yeah, I'll do it.
I've got to go method with this. This is the most important role of my life. I'm going to Broadway, baby. So she compels Luke to go away, find Bonnie and Liv, who is the new witch that has sealed her here because Bonnie as the anchor does not have her magic. And she's like, I need to get out, get them to break the spell. She's on the phone with Damon again. She's paranoid. She's deteriorating. She's like, everyone's lying to me. Did I kill Aaron? Is that what you won't tell me? And then when Bonnie and Liv show up, she's burning all of her stuff. Anything that Catherine has ever touched, she says she's cleansing herself of Catherine. They're trying to calm her down. She's like, no, I need to get out of here. She grabs a hockey stick, snaps it in half in her hands, throws a piece of it into Liv's belly, and tells her to drop the seal or she'll die without her vampire blood to heal her. We next see her wandering down the street, distraught. She's hearing voices. She's coughing up blood. Eagle-eyed listeners will have seen this is giving werewolf venom. She's hallucinating. She's deteriorating. The specific virus that Catherine put in her body was laced with werewolf venom so that the Vampire Ripper would kill as many vampires as it could and then die itself, finishing the issue. So where's Maxfield? After Esther's own heart. I kind of love that. She starts seeing Aaron again and she becomes excited because she's like, this means he's still alive and she didn't kill him. But when she looks up again, it's Damon actually who's come to her and tells her that she's hallucinating. He gives her some of Stefan's blood. Once she's more clear-headed, she tells him Catherine's won, she's turned me into a monster, I'm tweaking out. She tells him that she's killed Aaron Whitmore and Damon's like, no, you didn't. I did. And she's confused. She says to him, was it because of the virus? Did you need to turn him to drink him? And Damon tells her, it was before he was infected with the Ripper virus. It was the night that he thought she'd broken up with him, and he killed Aaron to convince himself that Elena was right, that he was the type of person who could kill in cold blood and would never change. So,
which I'm like, you needed convincing. You killed in cold blood before. That was the last argument you had was about that.
The delusion in this season that is needed to pretend that this works. We have to pretend that Damon's just this really good guy now. And it's like, you just told me he's been slaughtering people for decades.
One thing about this particular little chapter, outside of the Delena nonsense, is it is interesting to see, even in death, the repercussions of Catherine and all her machinations on Elena's life. And the very last thing she leaves Elena with is this trauma over, yeah, you've impersonated me so many times, you've killed my brother, you've hurt my friends, but now you were inside of me, pretending to be me. And not only did nobody realize that you weren't me, you tried to get with my ex, you wrote in my diary, you touched my stuff.
Yeah.
And now I suspect you might have used my body to murder a person who I actually felt this empathy for.
Who I cared about, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, damn, Catherine, you really got in that last lick. She's burning her stuff and saying, I need to cleanse my space. It really feels a lot like a victim of some sort of physical trauma or abuse who's like, yeah, Catherine is her abuser and she needs to get rid of everything that this woman has infected with her evil.
Yeah, it really gets diluted by all the Delena stuff because this is the really core, dramatic and really messed up stuff that's happening for Elena. Also, it's interesting that in this episode in the season, we now care about autonomy and agency and all of these sorts of things when many a time before it's not mattered. Not in a big way. But no, you're absolutely right.
I mean, Catherine definitely would have used Elena's body to sleep with Stefan. And it's like, ugh.
For sure. It's really messed up. It's so dark. Very Wonder Woman 84. It's just like,
Or Faith possessing Buffy that time for her first time,
Yeah.
or her body's first time
That's
with
so-
her then boyfriend Riley. It's like, you're violating two people.
That's so real. Again, just like the parallels with Buffy. Enzo's the one to bring the antidote that Caroline and Stefan have been like toiling with the Travelers to get. So unimportant how that happened.
Goody, Enzo's here.
Yeah, Enzo's just here because Enzo's alive and we have to care about him now. Later, after they're healed, Elena tells Damon that he should have noticed that it was Catherine and that it wasn't Elena these last 3 weeks. And Fadzai, I've just sent you something on WhatsApp that I need your assistance with.
Oh, let me see.
As our listenership may know, you are, of course, a trained actor. So we're going to enter a little bit of a dramatic reading. Perhaps one of the most iconic scenes of the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, God. Oh, my word.
Who do you want to be?
Who am I playing?
Your heart's content. I do not care who I play in the scene.
I guess I'll be Damon. I'll save you the horror of having to step into Damon's shoes.
That's probably best. I'll do a really dumb voice for Damon, and that's not going to inform the character, you know? It's not going to inform the performance. So, this is Elena and Damon at the Salvatore mansion. They're in the sitting room, living room, fireplace going. They're standing across from each other. Elena says, "If only you'd seen through her, Damon. There would be no vampire virus. Aaron would still be alive."
Catherine didn't do this. I did. I thought you broke my heart, so I ripped open Aaron's neck. That is how much control you have over me.
And I'm still here. That's how much control you have over me.
Listen to us. This is toxic. We are in a toxic relationship, Elena. I just killed your friend, and you find someone else to blame.
You want me to blame you? Easy. Done. You screwed up, Damon, again.
Thank you.
You put me in a position where I have to defend you again, where I have to bend my morals again, where I have to go against every single thing that I believe in again because I love you.
Then stop loving me.
I can't.
Well, that's the problem. We don't work.
I know.
Then we agree. This has to end.
It just did. It's over. We're over. And then they stand there and stare into each other's eyes for a second until Damon moves in to kiss her and they start ripping each other's clothes off and head over to the bed.
I need a shower after being Damon, but
if there were ever a more concentrated summation of what this relationship is, I haven't seen it. This is it.
Oh, absolutely.
This is the extent of their relationship. This is what we wanted, right? This is the win. This is endgame. This is what is best for This is what Rose wanted for her. Rose is cheering from the other side as this argument happens. She's like, yes, so hot. This is the win.
And all of these lines we just read through, Delena stands will hear the same words we hear, but they will mean something entirely different. They will hear Damon saying, that is how much control you have over me, and not hear that, yeah, it's kind of bad that your girlfriend upsets you and you lash out and kill people. They'll be like, no, oh my gosh, he loves her so much that the thought of her leaving him just like destroyed him and he did something terrible because his heart was broken. Oh, sweet Damon. They hear Elena saying, I defend you and bend my morals. And they hear, you see, he challenges her. He makes her see the world differently. He makes her question everything she's ever known. That's what love should do. It should change you. It should challenge your perceptions. Damon is making her grow up and become this different, better person. When she says she can't stop loving him, they're like, exactly, that's true love. Even if they wanted to, they can't end this.
This is the episode, and I remember it very vividly, when I gave up on Elena. I fully gave up. Because I truly had the wherewithal that, what was I when this? I was in my late teens, early 20s. And I think my brain had developed enough over the time to be like, oh, okay, I'm expending a lot of energy caring about how this girl is trapped in this toxic relationship and how it's really messed up that she is now warping to fit her monster of a boyfriend. Meanwhile, the narrative is like, no, this is good. They belong together. And anyone who says otherwise is a bitch and a hater. So every time Caroline opens her mouth about that relationship, she is supposedly the worst bitch to ever have existed. And she's either jealous or she's biased or she just hates Damon and she won't let Elena be happy. And I went, oh, I need to stop caring about this.
I love that.
Because clearly the story doesn't think it's bad. The story thinks this is great, so I need to distance myself for my peace to be protected, because this is bananas.
I love that this argument is them saying, we're terrible for each other, we have to break up, but we can't. And you being like, well, Elena, I know I'm done with your ass.
What am I supposed to do?
Whatever we had between us is definitely over. Maybe Damon can't leave you. I'm gonna leave.
I was like, okay, I'm engaged in this as though this is my real friend whose well-being is in danger. And no, this is a fictional character, and I need to stop caring. It's a fictional character who loves being where she is, and I need to leave them be and let them enjoy their lives however they choose to. None of my business. And I'll tell you that and say, from this point onwards, I don't think I've written a single note about Delena. And if you, Fadzai, feel the need to point out any Delena stuff that's happened, that is your prerogative. From this point onwards, I don't care.
Nothing interesting happens. Needless to say, she ultimately forgives him for murdering Aaron. Right. The only point of contention I can think of is, the fate of doppelgangers, and how bitter Damon is over that. How threatened he is by that.
I will say I'll run through a couple of, because the next couple of episodes don't matter plot-wise for Elena. In the next episode, Delena's pretending to be broken up again. Jeremy's failing out of school or whatever, but at the end he tells Elena, look around us, look at the life we live, how can I focus on school? But then he goes off to do hunter stuff and is like, I know what I'm doing, I'm fine. So that's that.
Good for him.
Good for him. A win. Like, stop trying to control my life, okay? I've died twice. Next episode also does not matter. Elena and Stefan are having shared dreams about this alternate life where they're both human and they meet and they fall in love and they have a house and a kids in the future.
That one was kind of sweet. I mean, it was painful in the way that when you've lost something and then you briefly think you have it, it's like, oh no, it's gone. Like, it's, oh, okay, the cops called you and they're like, we found your car. Oops, no, actually, no, it wasn't your car. Our mistake. You're never getting that back. Like, it was beautiful to see the last throes of Stelena, and at that point I was still clinging to hope because I'm Delulu.
Yeah, watching a dying horse kick its last kick. Real fun.
It was me. I don't know if you've ever seen I Am Legend with Will Smith. It was that scene with Will Smith lying there because he's been alone for like years in this zombie world. And his one companion has been this German Shepherd of his, Samantha. And she gets infected and he has to euthanize her. It's just watching the last hope you had, this thing you love, just die painfully and being like, oh, well, I guess we're here. I guess this is the end. Let's reminisce. Let's appreciate you for what you were, but you are going and there's nothing I can do to save you now. We also see glimpses of what they might have been as humans. Like, they meet as humans in this little dreamscape. They then get married and have kids. Like, you glimpse two of their kids. I don't know if the camera focuses on their faces.
No,
but
it's very Inception when you see like Leonardo DiCaprio's kids, and it's like, oh, we don't really see their faces. What's that about? It's because it's a dream, I guess.
Elena mentions that their son bit their daughter the other day, and I was like, ha. Vampire Diaries.
They turn that to be like, oh, I'll bite you, and it's like, what is this? We're just talking about your kids. This Colleen Hoover ass couple, like, what's going on? 3 quick things about this. 1, they'll pretend that it's drama for Delena, but it's not. It turns out to be Marcos, the leader of the Travelers, who put a spell on them for Traveler doppelganger shit reasons. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because about 14 episodes ago, Ketsia did the exact same thing to Stefan and Elena, to give you a sense of how much this matters. The other thing is that, like you say, a nice outcome for Elena and Stefan. It's like catharsis. It's the breakup they didn't get, right? In season 4, where they get that unceremonious bullshit ending on her stoop, where it's like,
oh yeah, that I can't do this anymore. I know, Stefan.
Yeah, they have a moment to be like, yeah, that Marcos fantasy was nice and amazing, but like the life we had was also amazing, and it was real. We suffered, but also we fell in love and we had a wonderful time, and like, It was great. And they say to each other, we will always love each other. And then she asks Stefan if he thinks that she and Damon will ever be able to talk like this, like friends. And Stefan says, I think you can either be friends with someone or in love with them. I don't think you can do both. I fundamentally disagree with that ideal. I think that's ridiculous. I think if you're not friends with the person you're in love with, how are you hanging out? What are you doing? What do you like about each other? I don't understand.
And on a show like this where many of the love stories have begun as friendships, healthy or otherwise, Caroline and Tyler became friends first before he started to fall for her and she fell for him back. Like, Caroline and Matt were hanging out as friends first. Like, they'd always been part of the same friend group. They became closer and then decided to give the relationship a try. Jeremy and Bonnie became friends first.
Right. It's like, what are we... Every move they make to be like, again, Damon and Elena are perfect in the pinnacle. It's just like... It's absolute nonsense, and it starts trampling all over previous stuff. It's like, no, you can absolutely be friends with the person you. In fact, I would argue personally, ideologically, you should be. Otherwise, what are you
and
doing?
even Elena, she says several times Damon is her friend before they eventually get together. I don't know whether the idea is that once you're in a
They
relationship,
stop being friends the moment they fall in love.
you're like elevated above that platonic friend status. And I'm like, yeah, you are. You're not platonic, but you can still, like, all those feelings that friends are allowed to have for each other, you can absolutely have that with your romantic partner. It's only the other way around.
You don't have to kick them
where
out.
There are rules.
It's okay. but it truly is, like, I think that's what pisses me off too, is that, like, ideologically, it's giving nuclear family, it's giving capitalist informed, like, relationship dynamics. It's like, you don't have to prioritize your partner above you, put them on this super high pinnacle above your friends. It's like, your friends should still matter. I consider those things like largely equivalents. Like, I would care about my friends as much as I care about my partner. At least I would hope so. But it's like, I don't know. It's really weird. It's whatever. Who cares? It's 2014.
I guess now that Elena is with Damon properly, we don't have to pretend that the two of them, or at least from her side, being friends with him makes any sense.
Right. We don't have to pretend that it was any sort of, like, genuine friendship. He was just trying to get in her pants and she was trying to resist the, like, oh, I might be in love with him. It's like, okay, well, now all of season 2 is so gross.
It's like you say, like you've been saying since, the end of Stelena. Elena and Stefan, so much chemistry, so much mutual respect. They vibe even when the story doesn't really want them to. And, Damon, Elena just doesn't have any chemistry with Damon that isn't, we are attracted to each other and there's sexual tension here. It's like, if they were to break up and they were to seriously treat this as like a relationship that is over and done with and we're never going to try again, the way that Stelena was treated, there'd be nothing for them to do with each other.
This is the thing. I don't think they know each other, like, at all. I don't think they ever actually interact in a way that's not explicitly romantic or charged. And it expresses itself in the fact that Damon is always baffled when Elena makes, like, compassionate choices, at least when she's, like, a human and in her first year as a vampire. Elena's always baffled when Damon does something monstrous and violent or kills somebody she cares about. And it's like, I don't think you two know each other at all, because all you have is lust.
Because nobody else is surprised by this behavior.
One's stuck. Everyone's like, who do you think you are dating, Elena? What did you think was gonna happen? To that point, I think at the end of this episode, they break up for a third time, and I do not care. It does not matter. Next episode! Again, this episode doesn't matter because Elena's not in the plot. Elena's studying and Stefan's helping her. Bonnie comes to join the session, I guess, because they're doing the same course. I don't know. Bonnie's just at campus now. They've learned that the Travelers are trying to destroy the other side, but she's not involved in any of that. She's trapped in a stupid Enzo plot about Damon framing Stefan for the murder of Enzo's favorite nurse at Augustine. Nothing to do with Elena. She's just a damsel in this episode by Enzo, which is like, this girl's a vampire now. Why is she still...
Because she's the youngest vampire in the group.
At the end, Stefan kills Enzo, and he makes Elena his secret keeper about that, because if Damon isn't coddled when bad things happen, he kills everyone in sight, right? So we've got to worry about that.
Such an abusive relationship.
It's so bad.
Not just for Elena, but also for Stefan. It's like, you can't upset this person, or they will hurt and destroy everything around them. We're not allowed to give them a bad
Your
day.
entire life now must revolve around making sure Damon is perfectly happy and content because you can't have anyone. Episode 20. The travelers are after Elena and Stefan for doppelganger bullshit. They want to break the curse that keeps them from settling together in one place. Elena, Stefan, and Damon are sequestering themselves in Caroline's dad's old cabin, while Luke Parker, who is Liv's twin brother, by the way, he's also a witch, cloaks them with magic. Caroline's picking up weird vibes from Elena and Stefan because they're hiding the Enzo thing. She goes and tells Damon about it. So later, when they're all drinking and they're playing charades and then they switch to Never Have I Ever, Caroline goes, "Never have I ever kissed a Salvatore brother." And Elena goes to drink because obviously she's kissed them both. And Caroline goes, "Today." And it's like, what? Because she's, quote, broken up with Damon, so the only other Salvatore is Stefan, so what are you implying? And then Damon goes, "Never have I ever lied about where Enzo is," and turns to look at Stefan. The vibe completely dies, and respectively, Stefan and Elena are like, "Okay, I'm gonna leave, because I don't know what the hell's going on." Oh, God. Enzo's a lingering ghost in this episode. I'm so sorry, listener. I challenge you to care about anything that's happening in this season and sit here and talk about it.
It must be said, just to frame this show and the storyline, we are doing an Elena episode. This is the season in which Enzo is introduced. We have barely spoken about him.
Yeah.
That's how removed he is from the main character of this TV show.
Because the travelers messed up Bonnie on the other side, they all killed themselves to overwhelm Bonnie as their anchor so that Marcos could walk back in. The other side is falling apart. So Enzo can just now linger and interact with the real world. And he's just kind of here for revenge. He tries to drown Elena in the bath. He somehow snatches Luke and disappears him. Luke, who's a powerful witch. I don't know. They all go looking for Luke. Caroline is asking Elena, "Why didn't you tell me that, it was all this Enzo shit?" Elena's like, "I don't want to put you in an awkward position." Caroline's like, "Oh, awkward like me accusing you of being makeout buddies with Stefan again?" And Elena's like, "Yeah, that was weird. Where did that come from, actually?" Caroline's like, I have no idea. She's like, "Are you over it?" And Caroline's like, "Yes." And then they move on. But obviously they're setting out that Caroline's falling for Stefan in this season.
She's past that event horizon of being on Team Stefan for Elena's sake. And now it's maybe she's on Team Stefan for somebody else's sake. Because surely if she was still Team Stelena, she would have been overjoyed that Elena and Stefan were canoodling again.
Mm-hmm. But now she's like, what the hell are you doing with my man? I mean, your ex-man. What? And I have a thesis, we'll get to it in Caroline episode, but I have a thesis about a lot of stuff from even before this point, but, we'll get to it. They promise Enzo they'll bring him back because they have a plan to bring the people who have died back to the real world. So that finishes that. And at the end of the episode, the travelers show up and they knock Elena out with magic and snatch her. So, last 2 episodes.
Damsel Elena.
Elena in Vampire Era. Penultimate episode, we see that she's tied up in this dank corridor. Marcos comes over to bleed some more doppelganger blood from her. I don't think she's ever met Marcos, and this is the second last episode. I don't think she's met a single traveler except the one that tried to passenger Catherine into her. It's crazy. After he's gone, Stefan, who's been freed by some unseen woman traveler, comes over to bust her out, and they leave. There's this moment when they're wandering back home where she's telling him to try and fail to vamp speed because it made her laugh, so that's cute. They spot a car. Stefan's going to do the hitchhiker thumb sign, but Elena stops him. This girl pulls her camisole a little bit down and she jiggles her cleavage into view. She flips her hair back and she does a sexy hitchhiker sign. It's good. I thought that was hilarious. It was very again, this is college Elena. She's having a fun time. She's living life, not held by any woes. When the car stops, she sees that it's a woman and she's like, oh, not what I was expecting, which heteronormative Elena Gilbert, homophobic Elena Gilbert, maybe she's sapphic. You don't know. Stefan tries to compel this woman. It doesn't work. Turns out this is the traveler that freed Stefan. She drives them to Mystic Falls. She's like, listen, the travelers are stripping Mystic Falls of traditional magic so that they can move in and just, exist as travelers. When they get back to MF, Liv and Luke intercept the car with magic and try and kill the doppelgangers so that their blood is no longer viable for the Traveler's spell. Their magic sputters out though because the Travelers have already started stripping Mystic Falls. Their daylight rings stop working and they start burning in the sun, so they have to run off into the grill where Matt leads them down into the tunnel so they can escape underground. And then, as they're running, Elena and Stefan start dying of the wounds that they had in their mortal deaths. Elena's throwing up water, she's drowning, Stefan gets knocked back and he has a buckshot blast to the chest, and they realize the anti-magic spell is stripping their vampirism. If they're not vampires, then they're just people who died. So, this means all the vampires have to leave Mystic Falls or die. Later, they regroup outside Whitmore College and they get ready to outrun the spell because the spell seems to be a dome that's expanding. Elena leaves with Damon while Stefan waits for Caroline to catch up. And that's kind of where it ends for Elena in that episode. In the final episode, she and Damon have to rush back to Whitmore because Stefan has died. Julian, not to be confused with season 7 Julian, who's a 300-year-old vampire. This is Traveler...
They use the same name?
They use the same name.
Wow, they don't usually do that.
This is Traveler Julian, who's about as much of an asshole as Vampire Julian is. They told him that his wife is actually dead. This is a Traveler that's inhabiting Tyler's body, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they told him, sorry, buddy, your wife is dead. And he's like, well, this is about to be your problem. And then he rips Stefan's heart out to stop the Traveler spell. Because he's like, I got nowhere else to go. And I'm just in this body that's not mine. Like, I'm not gonna run. Bonnie has a plan to use Marcus's trick that they used where they killed a bunch of Travelers to overwhelm her. They're like, we're gonna kill another bunch of Travelers to overwhelm me so that our dead friends can walk back through. We just need somebody to do that spell. And so Elena and Caroline go and find the Parker twins to make them do it. They're refusing because they're like, listen, we're sorry, that sucks. Sucks your friends are dead. If the Travelers get their way, we will lose our power. And they're like, well, we don't care. And Caroline snaps Luke's neck and says, hopefully that's some motivation for you. They lure the Travelers into the Mystic Grill, get them all in one place. They're like, we're throwing a welcoming party, Liz Forbes says. Damon is going to crash his car into it so that the explosion, combined with a gas leak that I think Matt and Jeremy have set up to fill up the grill, will kill all of the Travelers and Damon himself, who plans to then walk back through Bonnie. Elena hops into the car when he's about to do it because they're ride or die. So they ride and they die.
And that was one of the worst decisions she made this season, and that's saying something.
The two of them pass through Bonnie as the anchor into the other side, and they wake up near the crash. But because they can interact with the real world as spirits, they can swipe the daylight rings off of their bodies and put them back on.
And it's at that point that I was like, the other side duplicated your clothes for your ghost form, but not your rings. Not even like a non-magical ring. Just, okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, and in this collapse between the other side and the real world, when you walk back, you're coming back body and soul, even though your body is burnt up in a crash. So the spell constitutes matter out of nothing.
You know, and I'd be like, this is very interesting because A, it's like, yeah, Elena, this is the body that Catherine violated by possessing. So now it's gone. It's been burned to a crisp. Maybe you can let it go. But also, as we go forward, we see that when their vampirism is affected by Traveler magic stripping spirit magic away, they're still affected by those same wounds that killed them the first time round. And I'm like,
so it's like, is
when
this a
your
temporal
bodies were
clone?
reconstituted,
Did the spell do a facsimile of you at the point before you died? How did it know? Also, more on that anti-magic spell, because if it strips away the magic, you should just be dead. You shouldn't be dying.
Yes.
Right?
You should go back to being a ghost.
Unless vampirism, the vampire blood that turns you, starts acting as you're dying. Is that how we're counting it? I don't know.
I guess it's slowly undoing it. It works as slowly as the plot wants it to. It's slowly undoing it. So for Elena, it's like, oh, now I'm drowning because it's undoing the drowning that, or rather, it's redoing the drowning that vampirism had undone when it resurrected me the first time in transition.
But it's stripping away the magic. It's not reversing time, right? So the effect of the vampire blood is that you came back from death. So it's like, if we remove that undeath, that life in death, you should just be dead.
I guess it makes for cool visuals. We do later on see that, someone with a snapped neck, their neck just snaps. It doesn't, the bones
really cool.
in their spine don't slowly break.
It's really cool, actually, yeah. Fair enough. We'll handle it.
I would have loved to see how it affected Caroline, who just died of suffocation, and therefore there wasn't anything very physical happening to her.
she'd just be choking
maybe she would have
out,
just
I
started
guess.
to choke.
Yeah, it's not as exciting, I guess, but that was a very traumatic death. On the other side, she sees Rick. She goes to the crash to get that ring, and then she's looking for Damon. She can't find him, and Rick shows up with a really weird hairstyle, but, he hasn't been in the show. It's fine. And he's like, don't worry, I'll find Damon. I need to make sure you're back alive. So she goes off. They have to rush back through Bonnie because the other side is falling apart throughout this, and Luke has gone through already and said, I'm stopping the spell because it's killing my sister. Stefan's waiting for Damon. They tell everyone else to go through. Elena refuses, and Stefan's like, it's okay, I'll wait for him. She's already sobbing because, oh god, Damon's not going to make it back.
And Elena, maybe if you hadn't chosen to die with Damon and give Bonnie more work to do and Liv more work to do,
maybe she could have held on a little bit longer.
And Damon could have come back sooner.
Too bad. Stefan's waiting for him, but Bonnie starts coughing up because, again, the spell, she is holding the other side together actively. She starts to fall, and Stefan instinctively catches her before she can hit the ground and accidentally comes back through into the real world. And he's like, she was falling. I didn't want to. Elena starts crying because she's like, well, it's over. She goes to go find Liv, but Luke has already stopped the spell and spirited her away, with Damon trapped on the other side. Bonnie tells Elena that he's here in his ghostly spiritual form still, so you have some time. And they have a ghostly goodbye where she can't see or hear him, but he's caressing her hair or something. And once he's gone, Rick, who came back through, he holds Elena as she cries. And then they hear Jeremy screaming Bonnie's name outside. He's coming sort of like the Doppler effect as he approaches, and they go outside to see. When he gets there to where they are, they're all grouped together. Nobody has noticed that Bonnie has moved off to the edge of the cemetery by herself. She hasn't told any of them that when the other side goes, she's going with it. And so Damon and Bonnie disappear. And that's the end of season 5. I
can see why Nina was getting tired.
Yeah. Again, I don't know when she decided to leave, but I really don't understand why in this season where she assumedly hadn't made that decision, Elena just does not matter to the main plot beyond being a doppelganger, right? She shined in the earlier seasons for taking an active role in her story, for being the one investigating, putting things together, and playing social engineering, tricking original vampires. And it's now she's just Damon's girlfriend and a college student. Cool. That's fine. What can be said to that?
Yeah, because now most of her family is either dead or, Jeremy gets sent away a lot of the time, so
yeah,
he can't really be there.
But it's clearly the events that are happening, the other members of the MFG are taking active steps to do something. It's still affecting their milieu, their realm of existence. So it's God, wouldn't it be crazy if Elena cared about that? It's not that she doesn't care, right? That's the thing. I want to put it all on her. She's been removed for whatever reason, whatever artificial reasons. She's always somewhere else when the plot is happening, and she gets roped back in by a traveler who needs her blood.
I guess it's the year of the doppelganger, so most of her storylines have to revolve around the Silas and Amara and Ketsia of it all, and the travelers need to use doppelganger blood of it all. And outside of that, and even, within that, it's always being tied back to Damon. And how is this affecting her relationship with Damon?
Exactly.
And like I said, I can see why Nina would have gotten bored. You've been on the show for 5 years, and now not only is your character having very little to do, but the main focus is her being in love with the character played by the actor who you recently broke up with in real life.
Yeah.
I'd also want to go.
It is damn, y'all decided just as they broke up to make them the relationship, right? It's not just that she chooses Damon, it's that they are now the central relationship of the show, and so much time is devoted to them. And it's it sucks for everyone, I think, except for people who enjoy the relationship. which I guess is everyone. So what do I know?
Well, not everyone, just a far too large portion of the fan base, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's not a good season, is the thing, and it's not a good showing for Elena. And unfortunately, even though season 6, I believe, is a little better than season 5, Elena does not get a lot to do in that season either. So, in an untraditional move for the Vampire Diaries, season 5 was a full year. So, our college students, all one of them, because Caroline has dropped out, are in sophomore year.
And I guess we're now in either late 2012 or some point of early 2013.
We just finished the summer of 2012.
Okay, so if college is starting presumably like September-ish, we're still in 2012.
September 2012.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we're still in 2012.
The show's in 2015 at this point. Good news, Elena has switched to medicine to follow in her father's footsteps. So I guess that one episode was worth something. Bad news, she's doing witch drugs to hallucinate Damon, which she's emotionally blackmailing Luke to give her. She's been feeding on people outside the Mystic Falls border, which they can't go into Mystic Falls anymore because of the Traveler spell. One of whom she accidentally lets into Mystic Falls, which starts a whole bullshit storyline that again has nothing to do with Elena. She calls up Stefan in this first episode in a low moment to be like, how are you holding yourself together? Because I'm falling apart. Like, Damon's gone. I simply can't live without him. Also, I think like Bonnie went somewhere. I don't know where. So... And Stefan says that, hey, actually I gave up looking for Damon because I'm tired. I'm always
Not even
the one
going
to
for
be
the
doing this
bronze.
shit. I'm not. Like, I can't keep doing this stuff over and over again. It's very emotionally taxing and I'm heartbroken. So I made my peace. I said goodbye. And it's time for you to do that as well. Later in a conversation with Rick, Elena asks how he's handling being a vampire because since Rick walked back into the real world at the end of last season, he is the enhanced original vampire again.
Vampaloric and no longer tied to Elena. So I have to just mention, or we'll deal with it in the Loric episode, but have to mention, he is now immortal. He is functionally unkillable.
Unkillable. Which would have been interesting if it lasted longer than 3 episodes. He tells her he hates everything about being a vampire. And Elena says, me too.
Wow. I guess they needed to bring it back.
Yeah. She says she hated it until she discovered the good part, the promise that love could be eternal. And she had that with Damon. So for the rest of eternity, she'll have a hole in her heart where Damon was.
That's interesting considering when she became a vampire, she was dating another vampire already. So the promise of eternal love should have already been there, but okay.
No, it's not enough. Stefan, no, actually, I'm not going to discuss it. I don't care. It's like Damon's not even here and he's still infecting the plot line. It's so annoying.
It's all she does this season, though. All she does this season is be upset when Damon is gone and then
be upset when he's back because she doesn't remember him now, right? And then it's like, oh, do I want my memories back? But he's a monster and oh, everything's about Damon again this season. I hate it. She tells Rick, if she's ever going to fall in love again and make eternity bearable, she needs him, as an original vampire, to compel her to forget that she ever loved Damon. The next episode is largely just her asking all her friends to pretend that that's normal and cool and to keep up the ruse of this once it's done. Everybody's on board except for Caroline, her only real friend, who's like, girl, this is insane. I don't know what the plan is here. But ultimately, Rick spends the episode using, he says, hypnotherapy, memory reprocessing techniques, in addition to like his compulsion powers, to modify a number of signature memories that are related to Damon in her mind until they get to the core memory about Damon that will then like do a feedback loop through all the ones they've modified and sort of remove her love for him in her mind without like frying her brain.
Domino effect, just gonna cascade down through all her memories and edit them so that she knew Damon and I guess all the stuff went down the way it went down, but now adjusted so that they were never in love and never in a relationship.
If Elena behaved commensurate to her personality and she was like Stefan's monstrous older brother who I kind of had to deal with, who killed my brother and hurt my friends. I hated him, but he died, so, we've all got to be sad about it.
But I'm like, is that how compulsion works?
Rick takes great pains. It's obviously still like, pseudoscientific, but Rick takes great pains to say he studied up on the psychology of like how the brain works. Just compelling Damon out of her mind wouldn't work because her relationship with Damon and her love for Damon is too intricately connected to a number of other things. So he has to take this process to like piece by piece modify her memory. So it's not erasing Damon from her mind, it's just shifting how she felt about certain situations, certain things he did, blah, blah, blah. And then once we get to that core memory of when did you fall in love with Damon, which was while she was with Stefan. It's when he brought back her own necklace in episode 1 of season 3, I think, is when she fell in love with Damon. Once they get that one and he modifies it, that's what throws it all and topples them all and they all fall down.
Oh yeah, there's that whole thing where he's slowly getting more and more impatient with all the weak memories she's giving him about Elena, and eventually, does he speak to Caroline? Oh yeah, Caroline's like, because she doesn't want to admit what we all know, that she fell in love with Damon while she was with Stefan.
Which is like, why do you suddenly care? Why is this a big deal?
It was funny to watch Elena like suddenly stammering, being like, no, I was faithful to Stefan. I never did. And I was like, girl, at this point, what does it matter? Yes, we know you didn't actually cheat on Stefan. I mean, that one kiss at the end of season 2 notwithstanding, but we don't care at this point. Elena is dead and buried. Do what you want.
And so, yeah, she finally does confess to Rick and Rick modifies it and then she forgets she loves Damon. And that's that. Stefan comes to visit her at med school in the 3rd episode, so that's nice. The two of them catch up. She invites him to some pool party that's happening at like a watering hole near the campus. I don't know. Well, actually, it's like near Mystic Falls, which crazy they keep going back.
Even when they can't enter the town.
They're like, we've got to go back, guys. The magic will strip us of our vampirism, but we've got to hang out on that border. Caroline especially just can't let go, but, her mom's there. And that is the theme of this episode, where they feel like everyone's drifting apart because they've been removed from the place that, like, they all grew up in and lived in. Because Matt is still in Mystic Falls. Jeremy's still in Mystic Falls. Bonnie's dead. Damon's dead. Stefan's moved to Savannah, Georgia. Elena's at campus. Caroline has dropped out and is the only one trying to figure out a way to get Damon and Bonnie back. On the way to the pool party, Stefan and Elena are riding with this kid Liam in the back, who they'll sporadically try to convince you is this new love interest for Elena.
Liam, he wasn't exciting, but he also wasn't Damon, so win.
It's just already knowing by the time the Liam thing takes off that Damon exists somewhere. It's like, okay, so Damon's coming back, so this doesn't matter. Like, the story has proven time and time again that nothing exists above Delena. So she's at the pool party. She sees Jeremy at the pool making out with this girlie, Sarah. Don't worry about her. It's the same girl who she attacked at the border of Mystic Falls, who then ran inside. Elena's upset about this for some reason. I guess because Jeremy is supposed to wait around for Bonnie. I don't know. I don't know what Elena's mad about.
She's mad because, I mean, I think they've accepted at this point that Damon and Bonnie are never coming back. I guess she's mad that Jeremy is able to move on in her mind and not mourn Bonnie the way that she's mourning Damon. Because Jeremy has been in his hoe phase this summer. He's been living at the Lockwood Mansion with Matt and just...
well within his rights. But also it's like, she's not mourning Damon. She erased Damon from her memory. This is post the compulsion.
I guess now she's just being a judgy sister who's like, how dare my brother be sexually active and not in a monogamous relationship.
Okay, well, she, Caroline, Tyler, and Matt hang in the woods for a bit. Elena is trying to get everyone to do jello shots, but Matt can't do jello shots because he's like in the Town Watch junior duty program. I don't know what Matt's doing. Tyler is off alcohol because he's now an untriggered werewolf because he died and walked back through Bonnie. So now he's trying to keep his rage in check. So just Elena and Caroline are doing the shots and it's really depressing.
He had the magic of his hybrid nature stripped away, which also untriggered his werewolf curse, and then he died. Which didn't really make sense because it was like his werewolf curse was triggered triggered before he died, so it wasn't
Wrong
the right
order of operations. That's why I'm like, this anti-magic spell is reversing time.
But it's not even reversing time in the right order, because it's like his neck snapped after his werewolf side had been
Wrong
triggered.
order. On the way out of the party, Liam kisses Elena. This whole episode, she's been trying to set him up with Caroline. And so she's like, red flag. And he says, sure, maybe, but I have a sneaking suspicion that's your type. Whoop. Just for clarity, if you've never seen or remember who Liam is, Liam's the top nerd in their medicine class. He's that kid who cannot resist lifting his hand excitedly and giving the right answer. He is also wearing a golf shirt to the pool party. I don't know what energy he thinks he's giving off, but that's none of my business.
He's also like the show's only Hispanic character. So.
Which is a shame, because this character is nothing. This idea that he's supposedly giving off a bad boy vibe by kissing her when she was trying to set him up with her friend, it's like, no, not really.
I mean, I assume he's Hispanic because of the actor. I guess Michael Trevino could also be seen as Hispanic, but then it's like the whole Lockwood thing is confusing, so we don't know.
True, the Michael Trevino precedent. I don't know what Liam's surname is in the show, not to suggest that all Hispanic people must have Hispanic surnames. But like, I don't know what his vibe is. But later that night, Jeremy tells Elena and Caroline, if you cross the anti-magic border, it strips away your compulsion. Which means that girlie that Elena fed off, who then ran into Mystic Falls across the border, knows what they are. Again, this is something Elena will not be involved in going forward. She just goes back to school. Caroline moves back into the dorm and re-enrolls. They mention briefly that they miss Bonnie or whoever their friend was called. Elena spends the next day with Stefan, trying to convince him to come back to Mystic Falls, but she goes with him to Savannah, so he's like, come see how I live my life, you know, free of all the shit in our past in Mystic Falls or whatever. This is where they do that fake proposal at the bar.
Stephen Cooper. What was Elena's fake surname?
Stephen Cooper! I don't remember Elena's surname, but I remember Stephen Cooper. Elena's like, you're not just proposing to me because I'm pregnant. And Stefan's like, no. You were my rock through the multiple rehabs, the jail time, the bullfighting injury. And this baby is the best thing that's ever happened to us.
I was like, I love
really cute and funny.
I love the yes and the improv in this scene from their characters. Lovely.
This scene is very like, listen, we're so post relationship. They're friends. They're really good friends. It's all sweet and good, which wonderful. Love that.
I'm still bitter.
Hey,
and
fair
I
enough.
always will be.
Fair enough. As we said, me at this point, I had checked out like well into season 5, and I was on the Steroline train at this point. So this was great for me. I was like, wonderful. Elena's not going to be a sticking point because that's the only thing that could have stopped this. But of course, Stefan, for whatever reasons, just being an asshole in this season. So that's also going to be a problem. She leaves the bar. They've like said goodbye, and she's like going back home because she's like, okay, well, I guess your way's working. You can live your life. We'll text. And then she comes back for whatever reason and sees that Stefan has goaded some bar dude to beat him up because that's just his coping mechanism. She's like, oh, okay, so today was all bullshit. And she gets on his back about grieving for Damon when Damon was such a monster. And Stefan says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't just forget him like you did. And that's when Stefan spills about how she got Rick to compel Damon out of her mind because she just couldn't deal with the grief. So she can't be here judging him when she did all that. Elena then goes back to Mystic Falls, confronts Rick about it. A cover of The Power of Love is playing, which is the song that plays at the end of All of Us Strangers, which we just recently watched. So I was like, oh, what a coincidence. What timing. Rick gives her a diary where Elena has left a note for herself to be like, yes, I did compile my memories away. You're gonna wanna ask Rick to undo it. I'm begging you, please don't. I was not doing well while I had the memories, and you're probably doing great. And I have a vested interest in us doing great going forward. I always love a moment when a character is communicating somehow with their past self is communicating with their present self who either has no memory or has been reincarnated or for whatever reason does not recall something from their past. And you get this cool feedback loop of communication. It's really cute.
Yeah.
She leaves a diary with Rick for safekeeping and is like, in case I change my mind. But she's decided I'm gonna carry on as is. And so in the next episode, she invites Liam to a corn maze on homecoming, which is homecoming a thing that Americans do in tertiary? Is that like...
Yes.
What
do.
is homecoming? I'm realizing I don't know.
I had Googled it once and had a fair understanding of it, and now I've forgotten. It's possible that eventually it just became like a time of year. So even if you weren't physically coming to an institution or coming back from somewhere to somewhere else, it's just like, oh, it's just that time of year when it's homecoming. So now we call it that, and we do things around that time.
I'm going to Google it real quick because I'm like, in my mind, are you coming back to they've already been in session for the new semester, so it can't be school related. What is it, war? Because this town is always dealing with like civil war.
I don't think it's
So is that
war.
what
I
it's
think
about?
it is a schooling thing.
Okay. Welcoming back alumni or other former members of an organization to celebrate the organization's existence.
Oh, there we go. So you can do it in university as well as in like school.
So it's about the school?
Yeah, it's about school. That's why they have like homecoming games and stuff like that, like at high schools and colleges and whatnot.
I guess I thought it was like a matric ball situation. I guess that's...
Oh, you thought it was a dance? No, the dance is
Yeah.
because of the event. It's like saying, I'm having a Christmas dance or a Halloween dance. Like the event exists and then you have a dance because of the event. Yeah.
Weird. All right. God, America's such like a patriotic country that it filters into like schooling institutions. Oh, weird. So she invites him to the corn maze at homecoming. At the homecoming party, I guess, he tells her that he pulled up a satellite image of the maze beforehand. He gives like a direction that it actually is to get to the maze, because I guess they're actually running the maze. I don't know. But again, he says this to her and it's like, how did you ever think you gave off like bad boy energy when you're like, I'm going to put up a satellite image of the maze so that when I run the maze, I can be in competition with everyone else and I can win. It's not congruent to what he does and who he thinks he is. It's just really, really weird. It doesn't mesh.
He's a college boy, so, you know, straight college man.
I don't know.
I can...
Please explain it to me.
He's not who he thinks he is, you know?
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. It's just a front.
What's that thing that I'm always Sigma male?
He's a Sigma
I'm not
male.
saying I'm not saying Liam is a Sigma male, but I'm just saying that's an example of someone who's not who they think they are.
Okay, I can buy that. Tyler crashes into the corn maze, which is a whole ordeal. Lots of people are injured. Oh, they're all pre-med students, Liam and Elena, and I guess a couple of other people too. So Liam's like, come over here and help me with somebody. And then when she gets there, he's like, she's not gonna make it. So I don't know why he called her over. It's like, if I can't help you, shouldn't I be helping someone else?
He realized as she got there.
And the way he said it too was weirdly commanding, because she was trying to get to Tyler, who's like, Elena, I knocked into some dude, please help me. And Liam's like, come here. And it's like, what is this energy you're putting out? She shoos him off to go help somebody else. And while he's gone, she secretly feeds the girl vampire blood to heal her, and then compels her to say she dove out of the way just as Tyler passed through in the car. She tells Tyler, because Tyler's now like, this guy's gonna die. It's gonna re-trigger my werewolf curse. And Elena's like, buddy, you drove through like 100 people. There are a lot of people who are seconds from death here. Tyler starts freaking out. She's like, keep that guy awake, assess his injuries. I'm going to call Joe and Rick, because Joe and Rick are chaperoning the event. They come to another person. Liam again is just like commanding Elena around. It's just like, come help me here. And they find this girlie whose windpipe is deviated. And she again is looking to use her vampire blood. But Liam's like, I'm going to trach her, which is medical jargon for creating a hole through someone's trachea and inserting something tubular to create an alternate airflow because they can't breathe through their nose and mouth into their windpipe. I know this because someone did it in the movie Anaconda with the casing of a Bic pen. So
They love doing the whole pen trach thing. They used to do that in Grey's Anatomy every now and then when they were like in the field.
And it's like, this is infection central. But I mean, if the alternative is death, you know, you've got to try.
Yeah, it's the situation where it's like, hey, we can be sterile or we can be dead.
Yep.
You know?
And Elena has this moment of wonder to be like, whoa, modern medicine can do things. That's crazy.
Raised by a doctor.
So baffling. It's like, did you never talk to your dad about his profession? I guess over the last like 3 years, she's gotten so used to the reliance on vampire blood, and every time someone gets hurt or sick, we use vampire blood to heal them. And it's like,
yeah, at this point, her life has just been vampire blood heals all wounds. When somebody dies, get someone, usually Bonnie, to bring them back from the dead with magic. I don't know how actual hospitals and doctors work anymore. She was depressed. She didn't go get therapy, which she could have compelled for free if she wanted. She was like,
Sure.
magic drugs and then take my memories away.
All I can reckon with now in my new life is with supernatural things. Humans are useless. So that happens, and she's like gushing over like, wow, Liam, you're so cool in that moment. Like, you reminded me that medicine's really important. And he's like, yeah, okay. What about that other girl from earlier? She wasn't there when I came back, and she was like running around and like living and seemed okay. So what's that about? And she's like, shut up. And then she kisses him because he's asking too many questions. Which again is like, this was never gonna go anywhere.
Palate cleanser. I don't mind.
Palate cleanser. Except he wasn't cleansing, he was just causing more problems. Because he's like, I saw one instance of the supernatural and I of course have questions that need to be dealt with. And Elena's like, don't worry about it.
Frankly, she should have just compelled him to let it go. I was like, at this point, you guys are fine messing with people's heads. You've messed with Jeremy's head like 3 times.
Many a time. I don't know what the hang up is all of a sudden with this guy. Like, I can't even be pleased about it. It's like, oh, you respected his agency. It's like, this is the moment to do it when, like, you are under threat. Like, if people find out about this shit at Whitmore, it's like... Damon comes back the next episode. So, yippee!
Yay.
Elena gets Rick to promise not to uncompel her unless she asks him, because she's like panicking now. There is a moment where Damon comes to speak to her for the first time at her dorm room. He's outside the door, she's inside. They do this like split screen shot of them holding the door on either side. And then when he's like, please let me in, she unlocks the door for him to come in. But when he comes in, she's hopped out the window.
She pulled the Anna move.
She swan dived out of that window. And she calls Devin. Stefan's like, don't tell me you jumped out a window. Did anybody see you? Crazy. Oh yeah, separately, Rick tells Elena that he tried to compel Joe because they've been vibing, but he's like, my life's too complex. You need to stay away from me. But it didn't take. So Elena must now figure out what's going on there. So Elena, while she's doing her rounds, which is like, I guess if you're pre-med, you do rounds. I don't know how American med school works. I don't know how our med school works either, even though my sister did 6 years of med school, to be fair.
She's like a sophomore in college now. I don't know. Maybe they do.
She's a sophomore, but she just started not even medicine. She's doing pre-medicine to like bridge into med school. So it's like, why are they letting you in the wards at this time? Maybe they believe in a practical approach. I don't know. It is a college. Maybe they're like, you learn on the job. About medicine? I don't know. I don't know why I'm talking
people's
like
lives.
You know?
In your hand.
To be fair, Joe is like, scrub these bedpans. That's what's important for first
well,
year,
that's
so.
That's fine. They were just like, the interns don't want to do it. Let's get the pre-med students to do it.
Exactly. And then we'll call it experience. Which, to be fair. So at some point, Joe puts a coffee down to go into a ward and talk to a patient, and Elena sips it to test it. She's like, maybe she drinks vervain. No vervain in the coffee. Later, Joe shows her a medical chart and she describes a series of injuries that this person sustained. Elena's like, where are they? And then Joe opens the curtain to show an empty bed and is like, oh, they were never admitted. Apparently, she made a miraculous recovery. Apparently, she had an old hockey injury where she had to have her cartilage cleaned out periodically, and that was also healed. So, it's seeming very suspicious.
The wonders of vampire blood. So even like a thing that would be chronic, as long as it's like still technically, and like it's not like scarred tissue or anything, vampire blood can heal that.
Interesting.
Maybe Augustine
made some points, is the thing. They were like, we need this shit because people die of things that they shouldn't be dying from. I don't know. Joe is like, I know what you are. I know what Rick is. So, like, stop treating me like I'm stupid. I saw you sipping my coffee earlier. I don't think you were checking for stevia, which I thought was funny. So Elena's like, oh, and that's it? And Joe's like, you save that girl instead of feeding on her. That's good enough for me. And Elena says this, and I thought you'd be interested to hear this. She says, there's only one thing that can resist compulsion without needing vervain, and that's a witch.
What?
So I guess.
What? We've had werewolves on this show for 4 seasons now. No, this is now the 5th season. We've already had Damon say the line, he's supernatural, so I'm betting he can't be compelled, about the Hunters of the Five. So why are we...
And only when werewolves are turned into hybrids do they become susceptible to compulsion because of their vampire side. But apparently...
Okay, wow. I mean, at that point, I'm like, even you as the actor could have just been like, hey, a little script mistake here. That's not the lore of the world. I know people can be very precious about their scripts, but when you're number one on the call sheet, like Nina Dobrev was, I think you're safe.
You gotta be like, guys, I know we're in season 6. I know these shows start to like collapse at this point, but this is like basic lore, you know? So like, she's a witch. Joe is like, mind your business and I'll mind mine. Thank you very much. Elena finally decides to meet with Damon at the end of the episode, but she isn't in the dorm room when she goes back because he's been snatched by Trip Fell and the Hunter Squad in Mystic Falls.
Goody. Another exciting plot point.
He's a founding family guy. He's training up these young, impressionable boys who have nothing better to do. And he's driving vampires that they find across the Mystic Falls border to kill them. Which is especially like, you could be like, hey, he's a vampire hunter. He's doing vampire hunter business. Vampires are dangerous. But like, he doesn't just stake the vampires and get over it. He drives them over the border so they can feel the excruciation of turning back to human and then dying. Which is messed up in a way. That Trip is a character. Vampires killed his wife.
Founding family guy. So, you know how they are. John staking a helpless Anna while she lay on the floor vervained.
Bill Forbes torturing his own daughter because she'd been a vampire for like 2 months. Wild. Yeah, they're about to drive Damon across the anti-magic border. Elena and Caroline go to wait near the border to intercept them. And Elena decides in this moment that she wants her memories back because she can't make a decision about Damon if she only has half the information. Which I agree with. Unfortunately, in trying to save Damon, Rick gets driven across the anti-magic border. His vampirism gets stripped away. Joe manages to keep him from dying because she's a good doctor. And he survives and is taken to hospital, now human, which means he can no longer uncompel Elena. Next episode, fascinatingly, when they meet for the first time, Elena and Damon, for real now. Damon is like, please tell me you remember everything because Rick has died. Well, he didn't die, but he got unvampired. So I guess he's hoping, because original compulsion, right? When they die, unlike regular vampires, it isn't like locked in. It's undone, which is the thing with Elijah and Catherine at the tomb.
Yeah.
So I guess he's hoping because of that she has her memories back. And Elena's like, I remember all the awful things you did to me and the people I love. That's all I've got for you, buddy. At college, out in like the park of the college, Liam comes to see Elena. Caroline calls him McDreamy. And I'm like, please don't lie to me about this boy. I'm tired of it.
He's cute, but I think it's just mainly a reference to Grey's Anatomy because he's a med student and aspiring doctor. So I guess that's the main thing. But he's not unattractive.
No! I don't want to make it seem it's just about his looks. It's his whole vibe. I think this kid is kind of lame, is what I'm getting at. That's what I'm talking about.
So you find him as boring as Delena fans find Stefan.
Now, why would you...
Just to put it into...
I understand this is personal for you. That was uncalled for. That was an attack of the highest proportions. Okay? And I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to let it slide because I understand this is personal for you. And I'm a good friend. Jesus. We'll agree to disagree on Liam, whatever his surname is.
I almost called him Liam Dunbar, and I was like, nope, different supernatural teen show.
Just as lame, kid. So, like, the Liams are not doing well in the supernatural universes. Liam is obsessing over this girl that Elena saved with vampire blood. It is baffling she hasn't compelled him to forget this. Later, at some fancy dance at the campus, Damon is stalking Elena while she's on a date with this guy. He then takes her just outside the anti-magic field. They move the town sign further out to mark the bubble. I guess to remind her of that ride or die moment from season 5. As he's talking about like, oh, we had this wonderful relationship and we were great. Miss Gilbert has the genius idea to walk across the anti-magic border so that the magic will strip her compulsion away. Of course, she does then start coughing up water because, again, this thing will strip away your vampirism. So she's drowning and Damon pulls her away. But she does get a collection of memory flashes. So now we can go straight into Delena. No issue.
I will say, because I'm sure the Delena fans are like, you guys just hate Damon. I'll give him his flowers, even though the bar is in hell. He's like, no, it's not worth risking your life to get back your old memories. I don't want you sticking your head over the borderline just to undo the compulsion. I care enough
sure
about
hope
you
so.
to not want you to die. So there, Delena fans, that's
Bare
your fighter.
minimum of being
I
someone who
acknowledge-
cares about a person. All right.
I acknowledge that he did something good.
Sure. The next episode is the Gemini Thanksgiving dinner where Joe and then Liv and Luke Parker are reunited because, as it turns out, this is after 18 years, turns out they are all siblings and they are part of this Gemini coven. Largely nothing to do with Elena this episode, except that all the discussion of like witches and covens and twin merging is happening, and everyone has forgotten that Liam, who Elena invited, is in the room.
Damn, he's that irrelevant, they just forgot that he was there?
Truly, everyone forgot. And they turn around and like, Liam. And so then she has to decide if the mild flirtation they've had going is serious enough to like initiate him into the world of the supernatural, which obviously no. So she finally has to compel away all of the supernatural stuff that he's learned. And then she goes, and you're going to forget you even met me and just move on with your life.
Frankly, it's offensive that she even considered that their relationship was solid enough for her to tell him these things, because I'm like, girl, you didn't tell Jenna jack shit for a whole year. You left that woman in the dark for a year, and it's largely the reason she ended up dead.
It's true.
Your aunt, your guardian who lived in your house.
This lame as med school situationship, and you're like, I might tell him all about vampires. What? Nonsense. I think this is also the episode where they finally tell Elena and Caroline that Bonnie is still alive in a prison world and that she sacrificed herself to get Damon out. So,
Who?
you know, like anyone cares. Next episode, Elena tells Jeremy that Bonnie's still alive and that they're trying to get her back. But Jeremy's like, this shit's not going to work because it never does. I'm going to get my hopes up and then y'all are going to lose. And then it's like, now what? But Liv uses a spell to drop Elena and Damon into this prison world that they were trapped in 1994. She gets to speak to Bonnie. She's at the Salvatore house in the prison world. Bonnie's at a payphone on the way back from Portland, Oregon. Go back to the Kai episode if you want to know what's going on there. Again, nothing to do with Elena. Speaking of, Kai is back in the real world and he attacks Liv. So she has to run away and go into Mystic Falls to protect herself because that's where the anti-magic barrier is. Kai will have no magic and can't hurt her. That, of course, stops the spell and pulls Elena and Damon out before Bonnie can get back to Mystic Falls in the prison world. So
Jeremy called it.
Jeremy vindicated. They call him at the end and he's like, yep, just like I said, obviously something interrupted and we can't get Bonnie back. Thanks for depressing me further. Goodbye. The episode after that, there's a big dramatic conflict that's like, Kai is trying to reunite with Joe because Kai turns out to be Joe's twin brother. So they can do the twin merge in the like Gemini Coven twin merge thing so he can gain all the Gemini power. Damon and Rick are trying to stop that. Other side, Tyler has convinced the twins Liv and Luke to help Kai do the merge so that they don't have to do it because he is invested in Liv not dying because one of the twins is getting absorbed and will be effectively dead. About 10 minutes into this, Elena exits that plot and walks into the B plot of Caroline's mom having cancer so she can be at the center of that. So that's all that happens in this episode. At the end, she's kidnapped by Kai. I feel like I'm insane sometimes, but I hope that anyone listening to this understands. I'm not embellishing. I'm not exaggerating. If you go back and watch this season, these things are happening exactly as I'm describing them. Yeah, the next episode is the episode where Kai has her hostage.
Y'all can go back and listen to the Kai episode. It was nice to see Kai playing off of Elena. Like, he's a very fun, interesting, wild character. Easily the most interesting villain we've had since Klaus. No shade to Silas. Silas was cool, but he wasn't as cool as Klaus.
And he's only there for 5 minutes, so honestly, it's like... Silas was more formidable when he was like a specter in season 4, jumping around and throwing illusions. When he actually shows up, it's like, oh, you're just some psychic dude.
Evil Professor X.
Right.
But... or just Professor X.
Yeah, just regular Professor X. shady.
But I like the scene in which there's a dead girl like on the table that Kai has cloaked the Invisique spell. And when he allows her to become visible again and it freaks Elena out, like he giggles like a little kid who's just pulled a prank on his classmate. He's like, you had no idea. When he's talking to Elena and explaining his evil plan, and she's like, what's wrong with you? Like, she realizes that this man is even more messed up than Klaus, and that's saying something.
Empathy guns are not worth it here. They're almost negative. They spin back and hurt her, which has never happened before.
He's like mocking her, because like in that moment, I'm like, yeah, Kai doesn't see the world in the way a typical person would, but also a little bit, I think he's making fun of her when he's like, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, you're just really pretty. And I'm like, what's going on, Kai? He takes her to Mystic Falls High School, and I guess... So at this point, the magic bubble is gone.
He has sucked up the magic bubble. He's OP, and he hasn't done magic in like 20 years, so he's practicing on Elena.
Yeah, he's trying to practice on her because he's like, you'll make a great test, dummy, because you're a vampire, and as long as I don't damage your heart or separate your head from your body, you won't die. So he's like trying to practice telekinetic neck snapping. It takes him a few tries to get it right. Like he keeps knocking lockers and other things. He does get her. Later on, he melts her daylight ring by mistake. I think he was trying to turn her blood into acid.
That's correct.
And he melts away her daylight ring. And I was like, okay, we get it. Stelena is over. Okay, destroy the ring. It's fine. What more could you take away from me?
They're so invested. They're like, in case you had any shred of hope. And then they kick it into the ground. They twist the shoe.
One of my favorite moments, we see the shadow of human Elena return. I guess her being kidnapped all the time is what necessitated her being so resourceful when it came to fighting and escaping. So now that she's back in her damsel Elena era, she has to think quick. As her ring melts away, she like vamp rushes to like some sort of chem lab to run her hand under a tap and I guess try to cool down the metal, but it's too late. It's melted away. The ring is gone. And when Kai catches up to her, she has the idea to turn on, what is that thing called? It's not a Bunsen burner, that's something else. Just the gas thing. It's the
gas line, yeah. And usually in chemistry labs, there are gas lines that you can open a little spigot or tap. To light Bunsen burners, typically. That's where the gas comes from when you want to create a flame to do like chemical experiments or whatever.
I was always so scared of that in high school. I don't know. I just had this fear that I would blow up the class. But Elena is clever enough to turn that on and allow the gas to flow out, then stick her hand in front of the sunlight coming into the window, causing it to burst into flame so that she can shoot out a jet of fire at Kai. And I was like, I like it. I like that as time goes on in both shows, Vampire Diaries and the originals, the vampires start to use their weakness to sunlight and the resulting incendiary effects as an offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I like those moments, but also it's like, it's just, again, she's damsel Elena even though she's a vampire. There are a lot of scenes in the sequence where she's just regular running from Kai. And it's like, I think if you vamp sped, you'd be able to get away from this dude.
I guess she becomes trapped in the school because of the ring. So now it's like, she could vamp speed, but how far would she get?
Pre the ring, though, I guess maybe he put a barrier spell around the school, potentially. I don't know. But also it's like, him taking Elena is incidental. She was just the closest vampire. It could be, and it's not about Elena, right? And this is, again, the main plot. Kai's the main antagonist, and he has nothing to do with Elena. Anytime they interact, it's incidental. So
yeah,
it's just...
I guess writing problems because it was nice to have villains who weren't all about Elena.
Yeah.
Catherine was her doppelganger. Klaus was trying to sacrifice her. Esther wanted to use her. She was tied to Vampaloric. She was the doppelganger when the Travelers and Silas were doing their stuff. And it was like, okay, yeah, we can step away from Elena. She can still be here.
And certainly they're preparing the show for a time when she won't be here, right? So we need to get used to all the characters.
But they don't know what to do with her when the bad guy is not obsessed with her.
It's like, can't she just be an active member of the MFG? And like, even with other members of the group, if they're not actively being chased by the villain, they're still involved in trying to stop them. Elena's never involved in dealing with Kai, in dealing with any Gemini Coven stuff. Early on with all the Trip Cook, whatever his name is, none of it. She's just so far away from it all. It just sucks that like in the process of preparing for her exit, she becomes this like separate nothing character in her own story, or in the story in which she was a main character.
Yeah, but we've seen the show struggle when people are in the B plot, but there isn't a lot of B plot for them to plot.
Yeah.
They become really boring and superfluous. It's why Jeremy leaves the show this season, even though his love for Bonnie was still a pretty big thing. Even when the season starts, it's like he's heartbroken that he's lost her again.
It endlessly
but he's written out
me.
before she's even resurrected.
The episode before she comes back is when Jeremy leaves for Chicago or whatever, and it's like, geez, guys, come on. But also it's like, she leaves the A plot and then she goes into the B plots. And it's like, why is Elena here? You know, it's like the B plot characters who only ever have the B plot must now contend with Elena centering herself in their storylines. It's all weird. The next episode, which again, nothing to do with Elena, she and Damon collectively are centering themselves in the B-plot of Caroline's mom having cancer. We can't even have Caroline grieve properly because here's Damon and Elena calling her a bitch for trying to save her with vampire blood. It's like, why are you here? Why do your opinions matter on this?
See, if they had just stuck her with the Augustine research on her own and removed the Damon of it all.
Imagine. Maybe she could have helped this. Maybe she could have gone with my limited medical knowledge and with my dad's notes. We can try and figure something. No. She's just here to shit on Stefan for letting Caroline do it. Damon, her tag team partner, shitting on Caroline because Liz is his best friend. Nah. Don't piss me off. God, they're insufferable.
How many best friends does Damon have? Because he's got Bonnie post this season. Supposedly. He's got Enzo. He's got Rick. He's got Liz.
Never the four shall meet. We've just always got to have somebody who's vaguely Damon's best friend, because otherwise he would have nobody, because nobody likes that bastard. It's crazy. Kai does the twin merge with Luke and wins. And so he absorbs Luke, and Luke dies.
The bootleg twin merge.
The really spaza shop twin merge. As a result, Kai absorbs Luke's empathy because if you don't know, Kai is, as the show describes him, a sociopath. So he does kind of lack empathy for people. But because of the merge, some empathy is kind of forced onto him. He's struggling with that and he's like, now I feel compelled to do a Notes App apology tour. And Elena, I need you to help me do it because you have a habit of taking pity on absolute monsters. Elena does say, because he's trying to get her to get him in with Joe, and she's like, I've got something better if you're looking to make amends. Get Bonnie out of the prison world. He drops Elena, Damon, and Jeremy into the prison world using the Ascendant. They see that Bonnie is planning to kill herself that day, which is just Bonnie episode. They decide to send her a message, but they just send Jeremy back in so Kai can focus his magic on making him corporeal, so nothing about Elena important here. That's when they tell Jeremy, you need to leave because we've given the sign to Bonnie that here's a way to get out into the real world. Jeremy, you have to go to Chicago. Bonnie's on her way back. You need to leave. They compel the school principal to graduate him so he can get written off the show. And Elena has a nice last day with him. Also simultaneously, because Sheriff Forbes' cancer is terminal, she's trying to close up some cases. One of them is Elena and her parents driving off Wickery Bridge, which apparently happened with no skid marks. So they're also confused about why Grayson Gilbert just swerved off the road. They're like, maybe it was a vampire. It wasn't. We never get an answer.
Do they just leave that thread hanging?
They just leave it. They're like, he just crashed.
That is such a weird thing to bring up and then... Wow, okay, well...
Liz just gets really sick after that, so I guess she would never figure it out. I don't know. It's a weird lampshady thing about this car crash that I don't like.
They were flirting with the idea of making that Damon's fault as well.
Be freaking
They were
crazy.
Like, one last hurdle.
I want to say that would be the one, but let's not act. She would forgive him for that. It's not your fault, Damon.
She would, depending what the reason was. She would be like, oh, you were a different person, or your humanity was off, or blah, blah, blah,
You were sad
blah.
about Catherine.
Even though this would also be Damon robbing Jeremy of his parents. But she'd take it upon herself to be like, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I think Liz just dies. Never solving that, I guess. Caroline's mom dies, of course, and the next episode is her funeral, which is all very sad and somber. Towards the end, Elena figures out that Caroline is planning on turning off her humanity switch. And so she goes over to try and convince her not to. She says that this, and also, what was the other thing she did? Caroline references two things where she's like, you got to escape your grief, Elena. You got to go through this. And when you came out on the other side, most of the pain was done with. So I should also get that opportunity. And Elena's like, it's the biggest mistake I ever made. And I don't want you to make that mistake too. I can't let you do this. And this is while they're hugging. And Caroline has like, as she's sobbing, has like a moment of silence and then snaps Elena's neck. And she looks down on her and is like, that's not your choice to make. Which I assume she's already flipped the switch at that point. So. Bonnie crawls her way out of the prison world with barely any help from these losers. So...
She goes all the way to get Ketsia's rock and all the little bits and pieces she needs on her own.
I can't imagine the amount of work. And it's like, I've just got to figure out how to get there because there's no buses. Well, the vehicles all exist, but there's no airports running. There's no trains running. There's no ships. I've got to get to Nova Scotia by myself. She and Elena reunite. Elena then has to deal with a no-humanity Caroline, who's like, give me a year without trying to flip my switch, and I won't kill or maim anyone. Because it seems like a real inconvenience, this like lifestyle that I've now chosen, and I refuse to let it bother me. Elena talks to Stefan about it later, and she's like, yeah, she's snatch eating, erasing, she's stocked our dorm fridge with blood bags, like nobody's showing up dead or hurt. She is type A-ing her way through her no humanity era. I think this might actually work.
I think that's another instance with the whole I'm not an idiot thing. Caroline's like,
Yes!
I'm still me. I still want to be able to come back to my life with as little consequence as possible.
Exactly. They're like, because killing somebody would be an inconvenience, I'm gonna just stick to drinking them dry and then move on. Like, I want to go to college. Stefan insists it's not gonna work because he's projecting his own guilt onto this situation. We can talk about Steriline some other time. But he ropes Elena into helping him snap Caroline back. Obviously, it doesn't work. So Caroline compels Liam, who still matters for some reason, to do surgery on Sarah Salvatore. Long story. But as Caroline said, I will become your worst nightmare if you try and flip me. She tells them that Liam's gonna do surgery because y'all refuse to leave me alone. Elena tells Caroline, if you kill Sarah, it's gonna haunt you forever. Trust me, I did it and it sucks. And Caroline responds, I compelled a student to perform surgery on Stefan's niece. And you found a way to make this about you? God, you truly have a gift, Elena. Which, I mean...
I love it. I like to think that no humanity Caroline, some of that old grade 11 bitterness from pre-vampirism Caroline was like, ugh, Elena.
Rearing its head.
You always did steal the spotlight, didn't you?
But also it's like, I don't know, she's not super mad at this season, so is it accurate anymore? I don't think so. Funny as hell though. They get Liam's location and Elena runs off to Whitmore Medical, but she can't find what room they're in, so Stefan cows to Caroline's demand, which is to turn off his humanity switch, because he's the only one who would be able to get Caroline back. So while Caroline's on the phone with Elena, Stefan asks Elena to bring him back and then flips his switch. She won't, so, you know.
It's still nice that he says it to her. It's like, oh, look how close they are as platonic post-breakup friends.
And Elena's like, I don't know about all that. Because then in the next episode, she and Damon would rather venture into a 1903 prison world to get Lily Salvatore back rather than try to get Stefan back. Bonnie saw Lily Salvatore when the two prison worlds were blurring together as she was making her escape. The plan is for Lily to flip Stefan's switch back on, and then for Stefan to flip Caroline's switch back on. When Damon's talking about the fact they're in the prison world where Lily seems to be living, he's like, oh, she's a ripper because they found out she's trapped here because she tore through a boatload of people in 1903. Elena's like, Stefan's a ripper and you never gave up on him. Firstly, a lie. Because the moment Stefan became a ripper, Damon left and Lexi had to take care of him. Secondly, the Damon PR cleanup is so insane. Suddenly, Stefan and now his mother, who he doesn't know really beyond like the human she was, are the monsters of the family. And Damon has to like deal with it. It's just, it's crazy. I don't think much is important. That's like an episode about Damon reuniting with his mom, and Elena's there like, ooh, doting girlfriend. I want to meet your mom, my mother-in-law. It's like, all right.
Yeah, what does she even do in this era? Lily
Nothing.
sends her a funny text message because she doesn't know how to text. My dearest Elena, I pray this finds you well.
That's cute, I guess. The next episode at the medical center, they're dealing with Caroline and Stefan's victims because they're on a no humanity binge now. She informs Joe that Kai has been trapped in 1903 prison world for good. They left him behind. Well, Bonnie left him behind for good, and good for her. And Joe says, that's great news, excellent news, while she's holding her belly, which Elena, of course, like we know, is code for being pregnant. She congratulates Joe, and she's like, oh, so excited. Uncle Rick and Auntie Joe, they're having a baby. And then she has this wistful look on her face.
Ugh.
Later, she laments to Joe that there's a part of her, they're looking at all these victims, there's a part of her as a vampire that'll always be capable of doing what no humanity Steroline are doing right now. And that eventually, the people around her are going to age, and she won't. And Joe's like, yeah, I saw you got all depressed when I was talking about my pregnancy earlier, so what's going on there? And also, have you talked to Damon about it? Elena's like, oh, Damon knows how I feel. She will also talk to him later in the episode about always wanting a family. But we know that there's nothing we can do to change that. Just so happens, simultaneously, Bonnie on her way out of the prison world gave Damon a copy of The Cure for Vampirism, which she snatched from Silas's tomb in the prison world. And Damon has not told her about it. So yeah, Elena wants to be human.
We're back at it. After season 5 did a full 180. And she was like, oh, I'm fine being a vampire now. It's fine. Now all of a sudden, and it's not even like she knows the option is there yet, and that's why she's changed her mind. Just like independently, apropos of nothing, she's like, it'd be nice to be human again. And I guess the reason is not just because she wants kids, but because she doesn't want to age past the people she loves. And I'm like, what? The 2.5 mortals that you know?
Like, it's Jeremy and Rick, who was gonna be a vampire also. Like, most of your loved ones right now are vampires.
Oh yeah, Rick. Okay, fine. I'll say 3.5. Jeremy, Rick, and Matt. Bonnie, who could age very slowly because she's a witch. True. And it's like, Elena, really?
The example too they use is not about loved ones, because Joe's trying to be like, you want to go to Mystic Falls and open your private practice or whatever. They're like, treat little Stevie and make kids feel better. And Elena's like, yeah, until little Stevie grows up into teenage Steven and I haven't aged a day. So it's not even in reference to like her family. It's just like people, you know?
So boo-hoo, Elena. People are going to age and you won't. Okay? Maybe she does have a gift, because now she's making other people's natural aging process her issue as a vampire. Like, I'm sad because I'll meet some child in a professional capacity as my patient, and that child will continue to age. Okay? And then? How does that affect you?
What does Steven have to do with this?
I'm like, frankly, maybe you shouldn't be a doctor, because sometimes completely human doctors have patients who die. So if you can't handle people aging, which is a natural human thing, then maybe you shouldn't be a doctor at all, because sometimes patients don't live.
The thing is, this is a common, like, concern in vampire stories, right? It's a common plot beat where it's like a vampire will lament the fact that their immortality means they're not just watching their loved ones die, but they're watching the world pass them by as they continue to move on. And it's what makes them so disillusioned with humanity and empathy and concerns of the world, concerns about people who disappear in a blink of their eyes. Elena has been a vampire for a year. It's wild that a couple months after what seemed to be a really fun time of her being a vampire, she is suddenly already disillusioned with immortality. She is still the age that she was turned at, right? It's like, it just doesn't work as well.
Is she? No, I think she's probably
a couple years older.
Yeah, she's like 19, 20.
I mean, relative to like an original.
Yeah, she hasn't like aged out of her normal human lifespan, or even really the age group she was in.
Right.
She's still legally not allowed to drink in the United States.
Exactly. So it's just really interesting that that's, again, we're trying to get her out the door. So we got to do it somehow.
Yeah. And as usual, I hate the whole, oh, I want a family thing. I'm like, Elena, you are an adopted child. You love your adoptive brother. You loved your adopted parents. I don't know why you're acting like biology is such a deep
so
thing.
important.
Especially when you exist in a world with people who have been horribly treated by their biological family. It's the Michelsons. It's Giuseppe Salvatore. It's Isabel Fleming. Like, what?
I guess you could argue that she's suggesting that to be a parent, even if she were to adopt, she would not be aging. But in the discussion, they don't really explain it like that or frame it like that. It seems to be about having children, which you can't do as an immortal. They're talking about Joe being pregnant, right? So it's like, it's about this biological aspect. Whereas if they said even if she wanted to adopt, then she would be raising a kid and looking 20 the whole time. And so that would cause a wrench.
Because, yeah, that would have been a fair way to frame it. Even if they were just like, even just having a child and like she says, the precarious nature of vampirism, like, oh, I might hurt my child one day. Maybe my child comes in from playing outside with a bloody knee and suddenly I'm really hungry.
But it's like, if you were going to be a doctor, then what was...
Or I'm in love with a monster who sometimes... decides to kill people. What if one day Damon has a bad day and he murders our kids?
Imagine.
Ever since season 2, it's been presented as, oh, one of the reasons I don't want to be a vampire is because I want to have a family someday. And I'm like, okay, I guess Jeremy, your adoptive brother then, because family needs to be people who have the same mom and dad or people who give birth to their kids.
I don't know. But that is her focus now. I think next episode she vaguely assists with Stefan's plan to trick Caroline back to humanity because Damon and Lily have got Stefan back. And somewhere in there, Caroline tells Elena that she is settling with her vampire life with Damon. And that sparks a whole argument between them. They talk about how she wants to be human and that Damon is like, human, you chose Stefan. So that's... Again, we're pretending that that's like something that matters. Towards the end, Lily, because Damon has screwed her over in the main storyline, gives Elena the cure for vampirism that Damon has been hiding and tells her that he was never going to give it to her. This matters for exactly 5 seconds. He then tells her that Lily threatened to destroy it and that he was going to let her. This matters for exactly 0 seconds. They then decide to take the cure together. And that's that. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, we've discussed Damon enough, I guess. But I'm just like, yeah, Damon's going to take the cure with Elena now. Because that makes sense. Like the same Damon who, during your summer of love, when he had, quote unquote, got the girl and was deeply in love with you, was still like, I'm Damon, so I need to take time off of this to go murder Aaron's family. This Damon is going to give up his vampirism that he loves so much because of you. He couldn't give up some murderous vendetta against innocent people he doesn't know, but now he's going to give up immortality and superpowers.
Hey, for the love of Elena, his true love, who changed him, who made him a better man.
Until she doesn't. Rinse and repeat.
Oh, God. This is the bachelor and bachelorette parties. Elena and Bonnie are having the tiniest get-together at this empty diner. And the bachelor
Wild
party...
that Joe doesn't have any friends her own age.
Bless her heart, she does 14-hour shifts at that hospital. It's not her fault, but also,
I'm
geez,
like, girl, you
Joe.
don't have any like doctors or nurses that you're friends with?
They're like, God, she's so dedicated to her work. She doesn't have time to have fun with us. It's okay. The bachelorette party is a means to an end. The episode is really like talking pros, cons about Elena and Damon taking the cure. Bonnie points out that a thing that Elena's afraid of is that if she's human again, she won't love Damon. And Bonnie's like, what? Somebody had to say it, which I love Bonnie in this era because post-prison world, she truly gives no shit.
Yes.
She says whatever she wants. She's tired of everyone's bullshit, and I love that for her. Joe says, that's ridiculous. Being supernatural doesn't change who you are.
I'm like, Joe, you just got here. We've been watching this show for 6 years. It absolutely does. Whether it's werewolf tempers or witches being snobby about vampires existing or humanity switches and ripper genes or sire bonds and hybrid slave loyalty.
The thing is, Joe is right in this scene, right? The narrative is saying, listen to Joe, Elena. Your fears are unfounded. You will still love Damon if you are human again. So the fundament of being supernatural doesn't change to who you are is now true within the text. And so everything that happened in season 4 is nonsense, retroactively.
I guess it was that she always loved Damon, but it was this underlying thing she could ignore because she was in love with Stefan.
Sure.
And then the vampirism heightened that underlying Damon love to an extent she could no longer ignore. So she broke up with Stefan, and now that she is with Damon, even if the vampirism heightened love was dialed down a few degrees, she would still love him enough to be with him. But who knows? Maybe she wouldn't have loved him enough to put up with all the murderous vampire nonsense.
Because that's the concern, is that, like, will it be enough to deal? And that's the hilarious thing, too, is that, like, the sticking point is, like, what if I become human and I'm no longer able to okay the monstrous stuff he does? That would be a tragedy for me. That's what the fear is. It's that, like, I'll suddenly be aware that all the bad things he does are unforgivable, and I don't want that to happen. So it's like, later on a walk with Damon, she takes the cure. And she becomes human again on this road in the middle of Mystic Falls. I would say somewhat unceremoniously, but I guess if you care about these two, it is really big and sweeping. For whatever reason, this gives her compelled memories back. I don't know how that works.
What? The cure brings back compelled memories?
The cure brings back all the... Because she'd only gotten a few flashes from walking across the anti-magic border. When she takes the cure, everything that Rick compelled away comes back.
That makes no... Because we've never seen the cure undoing the effects of someone else's vampirism on you.
Yeah.
And it's not as if original vampires can only compel regular vampires. So even that wouldn't make any sense. That, like, now that she's human, the original vampire compulsion is gone. Okay, whatever.
Whatever. Who cares? Lily comes along and snaps Damon's neck, and Elena's human now, so she has to final girl away.
I like that the second she takes the key,
She's the damsel again. She's
damsel Elena comes back in full force.
It's nice to think that, and it's a really badass scene, right? Because it's like, yeah, I'm human, but that was when I was most resilient. It's like, she was that when she was a vampire too, so I don't think much has changed. Like, the effect of vampirism or humanity on whether or not Elena's a damsel is irrelevant. So, but it is funny that, like, right after.
Of course, you know me, I would be happy to have superpowers. I love vampirism in the various forms in which it exists. I certainly think Vampire Diaries is a universe in which vampirism has, like, the most pros versus cons.
Yes.
As opposed to, say, Buffy, where it might not even really be you and it's demonic essence controlling your corpse with memories of yours. Or Twilight, where you glitter in the sunlight and have a constant burning in your throat unless you're actively swallowing blood.
Worst nightmare.
But Elena, I'm just like, even as a person removed from myself, I would just think logically, Elena, your life is so dangerous. And it's so dangerous for the people you care about. Wouldn't you want to be a vampire just for the practicality, just for the safety, just to be able to take care of yourself? It makes me think of The Boys, season 3.
Spoilers.
Where Kimiko temporarily loses her superpowers because the compound V gets burned out of her by Soldier Boy. Initially, she's like, yay, because she believes that this quote-unquote monster that she's become was because she was a soup, and now she's free of that. And she's like, oh, I'm human. And not only does she realize that her ability to be incredibly violent when her life or the life of her loved ones is on the line has nothing to do with whether she has superpowers or not, but she realizes that, oh, as a defenseless human person in this world, I can't protect myself and others as well as I could when I was basically X-23, so I want the compound V back. And I'm like, well, there we go. Here's someone who doesn't want to be a soup because she thinks, oh, this is a cool life that looks like fun. She's like, just practically in this world, it is safer for me to be this way, despite all the cons that come with it. And I'm like, Elena, you don't maybe think, after everything you've been through, it might be useful to just stay a vampire. You don't even know if Klaus might breeze back into town and be like, now that you're human again, let's pick up where we left off and make more hybrids.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious. Well, that's a question that will never matter, but like, if Elena has the cure in her, can you still use her blood to make hybrids if she's got
probably not
that cues him?
I assume not.
I agree with you that, like, purely, even if it's just from a pragmatic point of view, I would rather be a vampire in Elena's position. But to try and think about it from her perspective, no one's been after her specifically for like 2 years now because she's no longer relevant to the plot. So
That's true.
Doesn't really need to be a vampire, right? There's also enough other vampires in the Mystic Falls crew now that it's like, can you think of a single scene where Elena's vampire strength added to like the collective effort?
Killing Cole.
But in the last 2 seasons, though.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Why does she need to be a vampire, you know?
But if Damon takes it, then there's only going to be Stefan and Caroline left. Because Tyler is no
That's
longer...
the ludicrous bit. That's the ludicrous bit of it for me. And to be fair, at the end of that episode, she has remembered that in season 4, when the cure was on the table the first time, she asked Damon to take the cure with her, and he said no, because he didn't want to abandon his vampirism. And so she tells him at the end, even though now that she's human, she's like, you haven't thought this through. And I'm not going to make you do this so that when we're human, you're just going to grow to resent me and our relationship's going to be ruined. And also, I take you away from your immortal brother. So go and reflect and think about this, and then we'll reconvene. So, you know.
One last hurdle.
Yeah.
I guess. One last obstacle for them.
It's Joe's wedding. And Elena is on bridal party duties for Joe.
Because Joe has no friends.
Her student and her students' college friends are her entire bridal party. Joe, I need better for you, my love. What is
Liv this? Liv is not even there, right?
Liv is not responding to a text. She wanted Liv to be her maid of honor. It's so sad. But she was like, my own sister's not responding to my text, so I need these kids to help me. There's a brief conversation between Elena and Rick after Joe has a panic attack and has to be rushed to the hospital. Rick's like, I want to see Joe. And Elena's like, if there's one place you want to be superstitious, it's Mystic Falls. You can't see your wife until your betrothed until the wedding. But don't worry, she's fine. It was just a small panic attack. And Rick's like, oh, he's panicking because she doesn't want to marry me? Oh, God. Which I thought was really cute. But she tells him, she's like, okay, I don't care about your drama. When I saw Joe fall down, I had the instinct to vamp rush over to her, but I couldn't. And when she hit her head, I wanted to give her vampire blood, and I couldn't. And I thought, what would a human do? So I called 911, and I let the doctors do their jobs. And it felt empowering. She says she thought becoming human again would take the edges off her senses, but she feels connected to the world again. And Rick says, yeah, you feel alive. That's what it means to be human. Your life has purpose again because it's finite. Which I like. I do like that framing, and I do agree with that sentiment that it's like, life has meaning because we die and we need to make the most of it. It's a nice thought.
That's true. I mean, I would feel that more strongly if vampires didn't drop like flies in this universe.
You know, they really act like there's no way to go out as a vampire. It's like, just one piece of wood slightly through your chest and you're done.
Even humans have killed vampires by the score in this universe.
You are only immortal biologically, my friend. When she sees Damon later, Damon has gone through Stefan's mental simulation of a human life and decided, even though it was the most miserable thing he's experienced, it's worth it to be with her. You can go back to the Damon episode to hear what nonsense that is. He agrees to take the cure. They then have sex in a barn and are late to the wedding, both of them being in the respective bridal parties. So they go to the wedding. Everything's cute and lovely and great. We're finishing the season. Boom. Kai attacks, stabs Joe through the back, killing her and her unborn babies, throws a giant motor spell that knocks everyone in the wedding across the, I was going to say room, it's an outdoor space, it's a gazebo. Everything goes flying, tables, glasses, people. Elena hits something, I can't remember what, and is knocked unconscious.
Almost like being a vampire would have kept you safer, Elena. But okay.
No comment. In the final episode of season 6, Elena's effectively final episode in the show, for real, we open on this fuzzy kind of image of her and Rick in the woods sparring together, and at the time we're not really sure what's happened. She's got pink gloves on, which I thought was cute. I was like, pink's not really Elena's color, but sure. Rick is morose, dejected. Of course, his wife and unborn children we just saw have been slaughtered. And he's talking about how he doesn't know what else he's meant to fight for. He doesn't have any fight left in him. At some point, we then cut to a similarly fuzzy image with Matt, where Elena is on Wickery Bridge with him, and it seems to be the night that Matt eulogized her. And Elena's handing those yellow flowers that he picked up to him. And he says he's glad she can find some humor in this. And she says the alternative is to say goodbye, which she's not ready for. Elsewhere in the story, we've seen that Elena is unconscious and she's been rushed into hospital and she will not wake up, even though there's nothing wrong with her physically. Damon confronts Kai in the hospital because I guess Kai has shown up to gloat. And at the same time, Bonnie and Matt have found a camcorder in the Salvatore house with a recording from Kai. and both parties are learning that Kai has linked Elena's life to Bonnie's in a, quote, Sleeping Beauty spell. So long as Bonnie is alive, Elena will remain in a preserved, unconscious state. So the moment Bonnie dies is the only time Elena will wake up. And if they go looking for a weird, witchy workaround, his words, he's rigged it so that they will both die instantly. How? I don't know. He's the all-powerful Gemini leader, so he can just do that.
I guess it's like when you're not supposed to go messing around with the wires inside a bomb.
Yeah. Has magic worked like that before, though?
I don't know. Does the cure undoing compulsion make any sense?
You make a point. Who cares at this point? Magic is whatever. We cut back to another fuzzy scene that we start to realize is mental simulations. A vampire is using mental powers so that Elena can have these last conversations with her loved ones because she's going to be in this deep sleep. With Stefan, they are on the hike from season 2 where she told him she didn't want to be a vampire. This hike ends at the quarry where he drowned for 3 months, so I'm sure there's a metaphor somewhere in there. She tells him that he knew her better than anyone, and always has. So he knows it's impossible for her to find the words to say goodbye. And Stefan's like, I can't do this. Not now, not ever. The next one we see is with Bonnie and Caroline at a girl's sleepover. I think it is a sleepover that they have had before. She tells Caroline to take care of everyone while she's gone, and she tells both of them to promise to write everything down. All they accomplish, every crush, falling in love, if they have families, every time they feel like killing Damon, which is like, okay, so that when she wakes up, she can read it all and feel like she was there experiencing it herself. And this is the moment where it's like, oh God, this is really sad. Caroline at that point leaves because the understanding is that Bonnie and Elena are never going to see each other again because Bonnie will die, then Elena will wake up. So Caroline's like, you guys have your own moment alone. Elena tells Bonnie that Bonnie has spent her entire life making sacrifices for her, and now it's Elena's turn to do that for Bonnie. She then rips open her pillow, pours feathers onto the bed, and has Bonnie do that first magic trick that she ever showed her. I will say, the feathers look much better floating in the air right now. They've improved their
in the 5 years that it's been.
You know? God, so glad they figured it out. We cut back to Matt in these mental simulations on Wickery Bridge, and he's in police uniform now, because apparently Elena's hope for Matt is that he becomes a pig. He says there's a good chance they'll never see each other again, because Bonnie might outlive him, I guess. Elena's like, look at everything the two of us have survived. I like our odds. Which apparently means she's hoping Bonnie dies before he does. All right, fair enough, I guess.
I would just like to say life expectancy for men,
right,
lower than that of women. And Bonnie is a witch and could very well live longer than the normal human lifespan. So
this is crazy that you're placing gambling bets on your best friend dying. But all right, that's your business. They cut back to the woods with Rick, where Elena's telling him that the pain will end, but first he has to let it all in, to let himself drown in it, and eventually he'll begin to swim. Interesting imagery. And every single breath he fights for will make him stronger. I've written here, his odds of seeing her are less likely. He is 12 years older than the kids and has a long-term drinking problem.
Okay, all right.
I don't know why. At the end of season 6, I'm just now being so mean to all these people. I think I'd fully lost my mind. Jeremy returns from Chicago and comes to the coffin where they're keeping Elena. In his mental dream with Elena, it's at his stoner spot at the school. And Elena starts crying and says, I wanted to at least pretend to be strong for you. Jeremy tells her, when you wake up, I want you to know I spent my life doing exactly what I wanted. His odds are less likely than Rick because he is an active vampire hunter.
Hey, he has Brotherhood of the Five powers, okay?
That's true. He might make it. For Tyler, we are in the slave cellar. So Not much else to be said about that. It's the slave seller where he would tie himself up for werewolf.
They don't really have much to say because of all the main Mystic Falls kids. He's the one she had like the least connection to. The weakest
The
rapport.
thing she tells him, there's no personal connection to it. She tells him, you need to get out of Mystic Falls and figure out your life and embrace the wolf. And it's like, have you ever cared about Tyler's experience as a werewolf?
It's because the last time they spoke, it was like, Tyler, explain to me how the sire bond works, because I'm now sire to Damon, like you were sire to Klaus.
Yeah,
and that was 2 seasons ago.
I briefly remember you running through a corn maze with your car, so it's like, I know something's going on.
Like, they do not have deep personal chats.
Yeah. And I mean, his odds of seeing her again are 0. Damon kills him in season 8. So, you know.
They might have been higher at this point in the story, you know. Werewolf, healing.
Yeah, I'm just speaking retroactively. I'm just like, well, he will never see you again, so sorry, bestie.
Ugh.
Yeah?
Tyler.
Back with Stefan at the quarry, Elena says, thank you for bumping into me that day in the hallway. That Stefan changed everything for her and quite literally saved her life. She says she loves him so much and can't wait to see what new life he's chosen in 60 to 70 years. And she tells him to just be happy and she'll see him soon. She won't. He dies to save Damon and all of Mystic Falls at the end of season 8. So, yeah. Finally, she and Damon spend like 5 minutes of the episode's runtime dancing on that stretch of Retcon Road where they first met.
Oh,
looking like they're in Ed Sheeran's We Found Love video.
Yes, what is the song that they dance to? It's called Hunger. I'm not sure who it's by. Ross Copperman. There we go. Ross Copperman. I used to have it on my phone back in the day.
Ooh.
It's a nice song. I will say, as an incredibly bitter Stelena fan who had watched it go down in flames, briefly get resurrected by botched necromancy, and then die again.
Yeah.
Despite all that, and despite Stereoline clearly being endgame by the end of this season, I did think it was a nice moment, a nice goodbye for... Well, a goodbye for now for Delena, them dancing there while Ross Copperman sings his lungs out. I was like, I can put it on that little island that I have to go on whenever I'm giving Damon any sort of positive criticism. And I was like, on this island, this is beautiful. This is sweet. I'll pretend you're a different Delena from the one who I wanted to be with Stefan.
I was kicked off the island, unfortunately. I'm on the no-flight list for the island. I caused too much property damage on there, so... I'm sorry, I can't join you. I hope you have fun, though.
I had to row myself to that island like Bonnie rowing herself to the prison world, Nova Scotia.
No. God, it's like surviving a zombie apocalypse. You have to keep siphoning cars for fuel just to get where you need to go. Anyway, she tells Damon not to sit around and wait for her, to live a life, to enjoy it, and to be happy. He will not, and it will become everyone else's problem.
I guess that was his whole pass, to be sexually active and date while she's asleep.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that's your business. If she's fine with that, that's cool. But, you know, I would have liked the writers to have to tussle with a celibate Damon. How interesting can you make him when he's not a sex bomb? But, oh well.
I guess they do for a second, but he just becomes this, like, mopey, obsessed, like, I have to do right by Elena. And then continues to act as he has consistently done.
Even Bonnie reminds him. Bonnie's like, Elena said you should live a full life. Go date and bonk people, Damon. It's fine.
Honestly, that might have solved some of the problems we have with him in season 7. I think if we just had a little sex, we would have had fewer issues. But yeah, with that, they lay Elena to rest in the Salvatore crypt, where Elena will remain asleep for 60 to 70 years. Or like 6 to 7% of that, because in season 8... Episode 22.
No, they don't have 22 episodes. They have
in
like
episode
12.
16.
Oh, 16.
I forgot. In the last 10 minutes of the final episode of the final season, after a climax of hellfire and 100 black women saving the world, as they always have to, we cut to Mystic Falls High School. It's got some fuzzy edges, so you're like, what's going on here? We're seeing display cases of pictures and trophies from the senior class of 2010, or 2011, I guess. Dialogue is playing in the background very faintly from the first 10 minutes of the first episode of the first season, as Elena Gilbert approaches the display case and smiles. I think this Caroline talking to Bonnie and Elena in the first episode. I can't believe we made it. We're finally here, talking about their junior year. And it's her meeting Stefan just outside the bathroom for the first time. She moves away from the display case down the hallway and she turns a corner and she sees Stefan standing there in a full suit. She asks him, "What happened? Why am I here?" And he tells her essentially that he has sacrificed himself for Damon, because apparently Damon is the better man, the right man. It's a lot of nonsense that means nothing. I don't understand what he's saying because he's not with Elena. So it's like, what's this better man stuff? I guess the better man to be alive? I don't really understand that rationale.
No.
He says, I saw a Damon in this last season, apparently, when he was working for the Siren and when he killed Tyler and when he was all around a monster. I saw a Damon who was like a hero, the Damon that could have been the Damon I knew when I was a child. And I knew then that he was the better man. He was the right man. And so I pushed him out of the way of like holding Catherine for the Hellfire, and I cured him with my blood. And then I held Catherine and stood in the path of the Hellfire and died. So, yeah, that happens. Stefan tells her, "It's good to see you one last time," and they hug. So, that's nice. And Elena, right back into it, starts non-diegetically reciting Dear Diary, as we see her wake up, not in her coffin, but in the bed, because I guess this is well after the end events, and when Bonnie has decided to try and wake Elena up again, and succeeds, undoing the Sleeping Beauty spell. How? Don't worry about it, she just did it.
Maybe Kai just lied, and if they had simply tried, they could have undone the spell easily.
The only way it works, because otherwise it don't. She's just like, I think I finally figured out this witch thing, which is like, and you hadn't before? You've raised people from death! What are we talking about? It's fine.
I have to assume she was saying that in a like jocular way, but still I'm like, Bonnie, you've done so much. You still, I assume, somewhere, at whatever house she lives in, whether it's Grams' house or Rudy Hopkins' house, I'm like, you still have all those books that the Martins had collected. You have access to Esther's grimoire. You have a limited amount of knowledge from Ketsia. You, in all of that, hadn't gathered enough knowledge to be like, I'm not scared of Kai and the one Gemini spell he managed to do. I can do this easily.
Well, for so much time, she didn't have magic, right? So it's like...
That's true.
When was she studying?
It's like a muscle, you need to exercise it.
You know? Anyway, Elena reunites with Caroline and Damon, and everyone's happy. We get a little epilogue at the end of the last episode where we're getting flashes of what everyone's life becomes now that every problem they've ever faced is done with and they'll never be bothered by supernatural creatures again. We hear that Elena goes to med school, and after she finishes, she comes back to Mystic Falls.
Oh, God.
God knows. Her brother's not there. Rick's certainly not there. Oh, Rick is there because he's running the Salvatore boarding school now.
He's running Xavier's school for gifted
Gifted supernatural kids. It's like, why would you want to live here? It's my home. But she does say, it's so cheesy. It's like that early to mid 2000 things of like, well, that's me. And it's my crazy, messy, dramatic life. But it's mine.
Yes.
It's like, okay. Wild. And she's like, I owe it all to Stefan, who brought me back to life when I lost my parents and I was dead inside. So I'm going to live as long as I can and as best as I can. And she's at the Salvatore crypt writing. She's in her scrubs. She's got that bad bob. A crow shows up and sits on the Salvatore crypt, and it's like, well, what does this mean? Damon's human. So what are we talking about? Of course, Damon immediately arrives. So
the crow was retconned into not being Damon. It was either some sort of compulsion vision or just a bird that coincidentally kept showing up.
So then why does this crow matter now?
Symbolism, bookends, denouement. It's definitely, if the crow was ever real, it can't be the same crow. What's the lifespan of a crow?
What's the lifespan of a crow, actually? Hold on. American crow, 7 to 8 years. So if it was like a juvenile crow,
it's
you know?
the same crow. It shows up. She watches it fly to the nest where it's with its babies.
Yeah, with its grandbabies at this point. It's like, oh, Elena Gilbert, I remember you when you were just a little whippersnapper. It's like, damn, we've come so far, Crow. Damon comes to fetch her, I guess, and then they hold hands and they walk off.
And then they die.
And then they die. She does say, because there was contention about this at the end of the Damon episode. She says, even after our long and happy life together, and what they're showing on screen is their hands clasped and a wedding ring on the hand that you can see facing the camera. So it seems like they got married, lived long, and died together in their bed like the Notebook. So they went into the afterlife at the same time. Because they're so in love, guys. Their true love took them at the same time. In the afterlife, she goes for a moment to see her parents and Jenna. And John appears from because she sees her parents and she hugs them. Jenna's gushing from the side. And then the door opens and you see John with a really nice haircut. I had to say, I was like, oh, John Gilbert. And she gives him this look that's like, John. And he starts laughing. And I thought it was really cute. It was like, we haven't seen each other in 8, 9, 10 years. Well, no, 70 years, because she died old, assumedly.
Yeah.
But also, they died old, and she gets to go to heaven as her 22-year-old self. That pisses me off, actually. This happened in spoiler alert. This happened in Supernatural, and I hated that too.
I guess your soul. I mean, you're only as young as you feel. So.
Why don't her parents go back to their prime?
I mean, this is the same world in which you can die. Your spirit goes to the other side, and if you get resurrected, you are reconstituted into brand new flesh, blood, and bone with clothes on that you died in. Unless you're Vicky, in which case you aren't wearing the vampire costume you died in. You get a brand new outfit. So I guess it's fine that if you die, you go to heaven and you look the way you want to look.
Yeah, and some of us, I guess, want to look like we're in our late 40s, which is they're all hot. It's fine. It's literally her whole family is hot, so who cares? But yeah, she's reunited. The Somers Gilbert clan reunited for the first time in so long. While presumably Jeremy's still an old man on Earth because he's not in heaven, right? We don't actually see Jeremy.
Jeremy didn't get to go to heaven. He wasn't as good as John.
Oh my god.
John being in heaven, I was like, okay. I guess you redeemed yourself with the last thing you ever did.
Well done.
Your sin was washed away. You died in a state of grace.
Lamb's blood washed him clean as snow. Anna's blood washed him clean as snow.
How wild would it have been if Isabel had come out of that house as well?
Imagine. She's
like
the whole gang's
what are you
here.
doing here?
That's the end of Elena Gilbert in the Vampire Diaries. It's been a long journey, and honestly, towards the end there, unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. There's really no other way to put it. And I think I said when the episode dropped, the first 2 parts, at some point I said that I want to sing Elena's praises in those earlier seasons because she's such a good character in those earlier seasons, despite her faults, despite the criticisms of people that get a little bit excessive and, as you've said, lean into some misogynistic stuff. She's a really cool character, especially for a human in that storyline where humans typically don't have power and are at the whims of vampires. She gets shit done. It just sucks that her last 2 years on the show are so marred by just inactivity, irrelevance to the main plot, so consumed, quote, by this relationship with Damon that they'll constantly be hurdle, roadblock. That means nothing because this is the end game that they want to happen. It's just so much of Elena is dead weight by the end of that show. And it sucks for a character that I've come to appreciate so much more than I already did.
Yeah. I mean, she peaked in high school, not as a character. She peaked in high school.
She peaked in high school and married her conservative white boyfriend. Yeah, that makes sense. That actually tracks for a woman of her demographic.
She peaked in high school and married her Confederate white boyfriend.
Exactly.
Now I want to picture a timeline, a storyline in which Elena and Damon reproduce. They have kids. Those kids have to now do history in an American school system. And it's well, kids, little known fact, your father was actually a Confederate soldier.
Unless the plan is to pretend he was always human and fake a history, which I don't know how they're doing that without compulsion, but whomst am I?
I guess they have Caroline Caroline, the last vampire standing.
How
and you
sad
know what?
is that?
Who deserves it more than her?
No, that's great. Well and good, she deserves it. But also, it's like now all her loved ones will die. It used to be like, yeah, we're all vampires. We're going to live forever. There are no vampires in the MFG by the end of that show except for Caroline. And she's just going to live forever.
I mean, Bonnie might get to be like 110 someday with like slow twitch aging.
If even.
So maybe. But other than that, yeah. She can always go visit Rebecca and Marcel.
Her favorite people. What? But yeah, Elena Giliberti, you were a wild ride. And for more often than not, a true anchor for the show as the main character. As the number one on the call sheet, as you would say.
Better than Bella Swan, nowhere near as good as Buffy.
God, no. Unfortunately not. There was a hot second where she could have been, and then they went, zoop, right turn. I guess left turn's the expression, but I'm left-handed, so it will be right turn for this moment.
That's fine.
Any final thoughts on this character? It feels weird to be closing out on her.
I mean, I think I've alluded to it before. I do wish the show would have been unafraid to mine more of the source materials content, not just with Stelena being endgame, but, you know, Elena dies as a vampire in the books. She comes back as an angel. That could have been cool. I know they would have grounded it in their more low-budget, visceral magic, but it could have been cool to see her become some sort of other supernatural, especially because she hates vampirism so much. I'm like, you could have had her become this angelic being who heals and is tied to life rather than undeath. It could have been interesting, but alas, the show really wanted the title to be relevant, and they were like, this is the Vampire Diaries, and by God, most of the characters are going to be vampires in some way, shape, or form, even 6 years into this universe.
I think in that same vein, even if it's like, because I'm not necessarily as attached to the Angel storyline because I never got that far in the books, even if it's a thing where, like we've said earlier, make her Buffy, make her a vampire hunter, and that's how you have her assert her space. It works again with like, she doesn't want to be a vampire, but she still wants to be a force to be reckoned with when vampires come to wreak shit in her town. Like, she was already training in season 3, they should have followed that all the way through, and she becomes like the replacement for Rick when he dies. I understand they had to do the Hunter storyline for Jeremy because he had nothing else going on, and it worked for him, so that was great. I don't say it facetiously. Genuinely, it's like, he needs a storyline, and it worked. But it's like, it would have been cool for her to be a hunter. Outside of that, make her a witch. They established that she's part of the Traveler bloodline. Have her be a traveler. Have her learn from... But the thing is, like, they don't care about the travelers, right? So, like, we don't get any actual interplay with Elena and the travelers beyond, like, nameless faces stealing her blood. It's like... Surely, she could have learned to use magic.
If they'd made her a witch, they would have had to write Bonnie out of the show because Lord knows half the time they don't care about that character until they need a witchy workaround.
This is the thing, right? Is that like when Bonnie loses her magic because she dies and comes back as an anchor, I guess in the place of introducing Liv, and I love Liv and Luke and that whole storyline and the Gemini Coven, but like imagine if it was Elena where they're like, oh, turns out you're this traveler thing. What if I taught you to use magic even though I can't use magic right now? Of course, that gets into some other like stuff where it's like her as the black best friend teaching her how to do things. Ayana and Esther repeated.
Yeah.
But she was doing that for Liv already, so it's not like that would have been any different. At least it would have been for her friend. I would have loved to see, that's what I said, like after she gets turned back into a human and we know that she's a traveler, it's weird we don't explore magic. I can't imagine every traveler in the world is dead, and I can't imagine that traveler magic is so far removed from traditional magic that she can't even try learning some stuff from Bonnie or her grimoires or whatever.
Also, magic will manifest no matter what, right? Because even Alaric's twins, who are now the last remaining Gemini witches in the world, are not only born as siphons, but their magic is popping out of them as they mature. And it's like, well, they haven't had any lessons. It's just going to happen. And now I'm wondering, will Elena and Damon's kids be travelers?
Assumedly so. And the thing is, I will say, in addition to the twins, Bonnie also, at 17, magic just started happening. So, you know.
Yeah. I'm like, will Damon and Elena's children have, like, the cure in their blood? Like they're genetically born with the cure?
I don't know. And also, it's like, the travelers did break the curse that keeps them from, like, gathering and doing magic unless they're in number. So, theoretically, her as a singular traveler, she doesn't need other travelers to do magic. She just needs to learn, and she'll be able to do it herself. So, it's crazy that they did... Well, I mean, she was leaving the show, so they couldn't do it.
Who knows? Elena, perhaps Mother Eve of a new traveler family tree. She's going to be the starting point.
Her
and they're
Slavic
going to come from
roots.
Mystic Falls, where everything
Starts a new movement.
happens.
Elena POC era, a traveler. Oh. Yeah, I guess it's fraught, right? But, you know, when have they ever cared? I guess that's all to say about Elena, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us for this long road, enormous ordeal. I think by the end, this will have been 16 hours of Elena just discussing her whole storyline. But also sticking with us throughout the show at large. If you've been listening to the whole show, we truly, truly appreciate it. We're going to be doing this thing for as long as we are able, so hope you stick around. Got more exciting episodes to come. We may have done our main character, but the characters you'll love are still coming up. So if you have any questions, queries, or just want to say hi, you can mail us at animalattackpod@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at animattackpod. That's ANIM attack pod. In the bio, you will find our link tree that'll take you to all our online stuff. From us, we wish you well, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers!
Bye.